working now, and I realized that we've got even more technical difficulties. No one could hear what I just said here in the last 20 seconds. So once again, thank you for coming in here to the Guys Who Stared Sets. It's been that kind of day. I'm going to be completely honest. It's been that kind of day, but let's get into it. Technical difficulties abound. I'm Cade Kennedy. Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo will join us shortly, unless somehow technical difficulties apply to human beings as well. But our main story tonight, for the final time this year, the Northwestern Rangers. The Rangers and Lady Rangers rolled into Shawnee for the GAC tournament, as it was the first time that both teams made the conference tournament. Tonight, I'll be discussing how the tournament went, as well as some closing thoughts on the season. On Friday afternoon, the Rangers played the Mule Riders of Southern Arkansas, while the Lady Rangers tried to upset the Lady Bisons of Harding. The Rangers lost to the Mule Riders by a score of 72-63. The Lady Rangers also failed to win a game at the tournament, as they lost to Harding 67-50. The Rangers lost, like I mentioned, a score of 72-63. Bubba Furlong, who's the Defensive Player of the Year in the Great American Conference, only played 11 minutes. Southern Arkansas did an excellent job just stopping Bubba from having really any playing time at all. He got 2 fouls early in the game, wasn't in the first half for long, came in the second half, picked up 3 fouls rather quickly, and it was just not a good time. I do have a quote here that goes with this story from our Northwestern news story coming out later on in the week. There was one major adjustment, and we can never make it, and that was the offensive rebounding, and that was said by Jordan Franz, the associate head coach of the Rangers. I do have a story that goes with this as well. According to a Storytown, Northwestern falls in the quarterfinals of GAC tournament by Andrew Santangelo of RideRangersRide.com. When you look at the women's side, the Lady Rangers, they did not fare well either, as they have a 67-50 loss to Harding. That one there can be wrapped up another story from Andrew Santangelo of RideRangersRide.com. Lady Rangers dropped conference quarterfinals game to Harding. This one, another interesting game in that the Rangers had a nice game going into the half, only down 3. Kinsey Nieder hits a big 3 to cut it to a 3-point game. And then the third quarter happened. The Lady Rangers scored 0 points in the third quarter, and it was one of the most disastrous quarters I have seen. I mean, there are not many times you go 10 whole minutes without being able to score, but Harding's defense was able to lock the Lady Rangers down and just could not get anything going. It was one of those that you look at it, you try to figure out any way you can to get back into the game, but just nothing was working for them. They couldn't shoot. They at times couldn't pass. They had trouble turning the ball over, and Harding was able to continue to play the way they wanted to play, get inside to their bigs, and continue to dominate. But the main takeaway from the season is this. Now that both are over, we're officially in the off season. The main focus now is going to kind of shift here on campus. You're going to see basketball is over. Now it's baseball season, it's softball season. It's going to be a fun time with both of those sports, as both teams are in the middle of the pack so far this year. They're continuing to get better. We're still early on. Season's only a month old at this point. But it is going to be an exciting time there, and I hope that you can continue to support them the same way that you've supported the basketball team. But the basketball season is not over for everyone, as the school that, currently an hour and a half south of us, the team from Weatherford, Southwestern, they get a giant win on the men's side. They upset Oklahoma Baptist. They proceed to upset Southern Arkansas, and they march all the way. I mean, a big win for them. They continue to play basketball the way they want to. They're getting hot at the right time, playing through Damian Thornton. And Southwestern on the men's side and the women's side as well, already a dominant women's team. They win both GAC tournaments, both tournaments that on the women's side they didn't need to have, on the men's side they did, to get to the NCAA tournament. So we thank you for sticking around despite all the technical difficulties we've had already, whether it be visual or audio or who knows what the heck's going to happen next. But thank you for sticking around. I'm Cade Kennedy. We will be here with some even more with Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo. But if you liked what you heard so far, just give us a follow here on Twitch. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or even Instagram. That's NWTV7. Once again, that's NWTV7. So as we get ready to welcome both Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo into the show, it is an exciting time in the NFL. It really is. This is one of those where you don't really know what you're getting into when you start the day, but we're at the point we are right now. It is an exciting time. It really is. And there's no better way to show it off than with our brand new setup we have, ladies and gentlemen. We have a brand new setup here that I am proud to debut tonight. This is going to be fun, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be fun. As I motion both Andrew and Connor to get in here from our studio room, it is an exciting day in the NFL, to say the very least. This is one of those days that you look at it and you don't really know what you're getting into, as I just mentioned. But where we are at now, this is going to be fun.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so your audios are fine. You do not have the same problem that I had when I first got in here, but we had all sorts of problems, ladies and gentlemen. But that is over. There's a new problem for the Seattle Seahawks, and that is because of one simple thing. Russell Wilson is no longer there, ladies and gentlemen. He's now a Denver Bronco.
Now the AFC West now is basically the quarterback division.
Yeah, welcome to everyone enjoys the West, whether it be the NFC West or the AFC West. Because you've got good quarterbacks and good teams in both divisions.
Yep. You obviously, Mahomes being Kansas City, you have Justin Herbert in Los Angeles with the Chargers, and you have Derek Carr, who's really revitalized himself, becoming a much better quarterback than he was the past few years. And now you got Russell Wilson, who obviously last season was not the best year he's had, but maybe the change of scenery going to Denver, who really just mainly needed a quarterback to be more competitive, will open things up for Denver.
I mean, that's a very good possibility. Getting into the exact negotiations of the trade here, Seattle Seahawks trading Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Denver not giving up a whole lot, only giving up Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, a 4th-round pick, 2 first-round picks. You'll gladly trade all those picks away, though. I mean, some of those, when you're all in for a title like it appears this move is, that's pocket change to you.
Yeah. So I think Denver gave up a lot here. I really love this trade for both sides, but I really love this trade for Seattle. They have a quarterback that clearly wanted out. Now they get a young quarterback as well that now has plenty of weapons, including Noah Fant, who I think is a really good tight end, one of the better tight ends in the league. And I think this sets Seattle up for success too. So I think this helps both teams. I do think Denver did give up quite a bit here. I mean, first off, you give up 5 picks in total, including 2 firsts, and then you give up, again, I like Noah, and then Shelby Harris has been a pretty good lineman for him. So I think, again, this helps both teams, but I really like this deal for Seattle, especially because, I mean, you look at some of these other trades when guys want out, you usually don't get this much, but to bring in 5 picks and those 3 players are pretty impressive.
Well, and Denver's willing to give them up just to go try to, with the talent they currently have, to go on a run. And smart move by them in some ways, but also if this doesn't work out, you basically kill your future, but it's a gamble you're willing to take, which I would take it also.
Yeah, so I think most teams make this move.
And obviously Seattle, the direction they were going, it was obvious from last season. They really needed to blow it up, or at least get rid of some space, and obviously build up for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be interesting to see with the Seahawks now. Obviously, you don't have Russell Wilson, and this offense is going to be a bit more intriguing to look at. So when we think of the NFL draft and we think of all the free agency that's going on, and we had the franchise tagging going on today, what are your guys' kind of predictions that Seattle's going to do here from this point? Now that they've made this move, you're officially in the next era, I guess you could say. Where do you go from here?
I'm asking them to stand kind of where they're at right now. I mean, obviously, they have the Super Bowl champions in that division. They'll be back just as good next year. You have the Arizona Cardinals, who really excelled this year. Obviously, it seems like Kyler Murray's unhappy, so we'll see if he ends up staying there. But I see Seattle staying probably around the 2-3 spot in this division. It all depends on what Drew Lock's able to do. I will say the one downside for Lock here is, obviously, we've known about their offensive line problems here in the past, so are they going to be able to rebuild some of that in this year's draft? Are they going to be able to go sign some guys? I think that's Seattle's focus right now. Their defense was fine last year. You have 2 fantastic wide receivers. Now you get a fantastic tight end. Really, the only weakness right here is the offensive line, and then how good can Drew Lock be? And then I think that answer is going to go back to how far can the offensive line take you, which we all see has been a major part in football today.
Actually, mainly want to know is like what on the draft picks that they got. What years are what are the years for those?
I would like to know that as well. The ESPN article didn't really mention what exact years they are.
Yeah, that doesn't help. So.
Well, yeah, I know it doesn't help, but unfortunately, I did not get.
Do your job, Adam Schefter.
I mean, that would be appreciated, but we really don't know, and that's kind of the one concern sometimes is.
I'm gonna assume it might be one for this year, and then some of them probably for the next couple years on
that would
spreading
make
them
sense.
out. But obviously, what you want to do, especially if you have even if it's for the next year's draft, you basically want to start loading up on either going to the draft, getting new offensive linemen, or might grab a weapon. But obviously, if you're Seattle, either you wait another year to get a quarterback because this isn't a draft-heavy quarterback, and I don't know if they are low enough to get a quarterback. Is there a draft placement for them?
We can see.
I don't
they
remember.
Should be. They didn't make the playoffs, so they should be decent.
Like I know they were in the bottom of their division, but they didn't have an awful record. Like I don't think it's enough I'm not sure if they're in the top 10 or not.
Yeah, we can see.
I've read 4 different tweets, and none of them have what year those picks are in.
Yeah, no one knows.
Well,
looking here, it appears that Seattle does not even show a Seattle pick.
And they might have traded because they had the Clowney trade.
Yeah,
they've made a lot of trades. So this might have been a trade too to revamp some of their picks. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have one because they've made some trades in the past.
Yeah.
And there's Denver sitting at 9 there, so that's sitting this year. That's gonna be a pretty nice pick there for Seattle.
That will be.
And part of the problem too is we still gotta wait. Is Wilson gonna accept the deal? That's obviously he hasn't spoke about it yet. He has a no trade clause, so this could all go down the wayside here if Wilson comes out and says I don't want this trade.
Yeah, I mean that could easily happen. One thing we can tell you, we've talked about Russell Wilson a little bit. There's another team we got to talk about, and that's the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, if things go well, like that we're expected to, Aaron Rodgers re-signing with the Packers, that will be a big deal for them. The Packers fans' nightmare is over. Aaron Rodgers will be back. He is still going to be your quarterback. You're still going to be a good team. You're not going to have to deal with Jordan Love as your starter and him getting thrust immediately into the spotlight if that would be the way people thought it would go.
And another thing for Packers fans at least to be happy for one more year is that Devontae Adams was franchise tagged.
Yeah, so it seems the Packers are safe for now, at least.
At least they're buying themselves one more year, at least for regards to other talent. But basically, Green Bay right now needs to look at refunneling talent in other positions because they can't keep everyone else. Yeah, I understand the deal that they're trying to do, that they tried to make with Aaron, was enough to allow at least most of the talent to come back that they were going to lose, but it's really hard to say what they're going to do about that.
And another thing that's interesting for me looking at it is the Broncos' odds to win the Super Bowl today jumped from 25-1 to 12-1. They are now the 4th best odds to win the Super Bowl next year. And keep in mind the other 3 teams, Buffalo, who's 15-2, Kansas City, who's 8-1, and Green Bay, who's 10-1. So right now, Buffalo, the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. All right. So that is a bit interesting to see. Also, 3 of the top 4 teams all being in the AFC. That just shows you how tough the AFC is right now at the top.
Oh, yeah. This is basically the AFC pretty much feels like they pretty much just run things right now.
Right now.
It's the talent gap.
Well, honestly, I don't know, but I think it's pretty spread out compared to what it's been in years past. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl champion came from the NFC the last 2 seasons. Obviously, we'll see what Tampa Bay does, but Tampa Bay, I mean, they're still going to be up there. Not their team. I mean, obviously losing Tom Brady, but their team is still very good top to bottom. The Rams were very good. The Cardinals were one of the best record teams in the league.
They kind of teetered off.
The Packers will be back. I mean, really, I truly believe it's pretty spread out.
Cardinals kind of struck when dealing with, obviously, I know they dealt with injuries, but they didn't know how to respond well without DeAndre Hopkins. That's something they need to something they're going to have to fix. At least everyone else that's on that team's got to step up. Obviously, you got to deal with Kyler Murray if he's going to come back, which, according to his agent, he wants to come back and he wants to be back with the Arizona Cardinals, but who really knows how that whole saga is going to be going down. It just seems like, but in regards, like, it just doesn't, well, I do agree with that it is a bit spread out. It seems like a lot of the bigger, like, more flashy talent is on the AFC side, while as the NFC, it's not as flashy, but you still have it's just as talented as the AFC.
I agree. They might not have the flashy players, but talent top to bottom and team-wise, I think it's pretty much even as,
Yeah,
I mean, it's been in a long time.
Yeah, we agree on that.
I mean, I really don't. I mean, I don't know. It's been pretty good, pretty spread out. And here's the thing with Russell Wilson too is I'm interested to see how he kind of bounces back too, because he's had some down years for himself too. So obviously on paper this is a great trade and everything, but Wilson still has to go out there and get the job done, because I mean you look at it, they were 7-10 this past year, so we'll see where he goes from here. With this team, and
at least if Wilson goes down, you at least have Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, so that is the thing about the Broncos is you look at this team now. Obviously, Seattle's still going to be a good team. Not saying they won't be, even with Drew Lock at quarterback, which Denver fans, your nightmare's over too, I guess. But
I've watched Drew Lock before. I've watched Drew Lock because obviously Chiefs fan end up having to watch him anyways, but he's not as terrible as some people make him out to be.
I think it's one of those, and you see this with a lot of quarterbacks. You start projecting your expectations onto them that are already unrealistic because you grow up with other quarterbacks. You expect, okay, we had Peyton Manning, so we expect to have good quarterbacks now. And it's like, no.
They only had him for 3 seasons, and they already had way too much high expectations.
Yeah, they already had way too high expectations for him. So if you think about, they had high expectations for Peyton Manning, and they got mad at him when he didn't meet his own expectations. Poor Drew Lock over here's got to live up to that now too. And obviously, he played like a young quarterback would. Most young quarterbacks right out the gate are not some amazing world beater.
I'm not saying like he was much better than what his stats showed, but it's like it's not giving him a fair chance. Plus, the teams he was with was on the decline. His defense, when he actually started, defenses weren't good, and the offense was always missing somebody. Yeah. So he never had a full team to work with.
Yeah, but you look at this Broncos roster now on the offensive side. You got Russell Wilson, if he produces like we expect that he can, should be extremely fun to watch. Melvin Gordon III at running back, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, your starting 3 wide receivers. And, I mean, this is going to be an interesting team.
It's a great team for Russell to come into, but the fact that if he says no to it, it's going to be like, wait, why are you saying no?
I mean, there are also rumors that Von Miller's going to come back. He won his ring with the Rams, and he might come back, re-sign with the Broncos. Come back, maybe try to win another ring.
Either he's going to have to take a minimum, or he'll have to take a smaller contract.
I think at this point he's willing to do that. He got his championship he was going out to get, so he very well might. It's going to be an interesting time in the NFL, that's for sure.
Well, plus I think Denver's still going to have some good money out there. I mean, if you look at a lot of their key guys, they really aren't.
That's true.
I mean, Jerry Jeudy's still on his rookie deal. Cortland Sutton's fairly young. Tim Patrick developed himself. He's younger.
Yeah.
Really, the only one probably getting a lot of money would be probably Melvin Gordon, and then I'm sure there's some offensive linemen getting some good contracts and all that. But I would be interested to see what their cap space is.
It will be interesting to see what all they have going on. But one thing I also want to get to, obviously, we had a lot of fun college basketball over the past week.
When don't we?
I mean, when don't we is the right question. Right answer.
Obviously, some teams have finished up some conferences have finished up their
some conferences,
but we still have many left to go.
Some conferences are done, some are not done, and that's where I want to begin. I want to go all the way back to Saturday because I want to recap quite possibly one of the funniest experiences I've ever seen in all of my years of watching college basketball. So I want to kind of get into this, how it happened throughout the day. We're not going to go in normal logical order here. We're going to start with Texas and Kansas. This was an insanely fun game to watch. Texas, Kansas, you get a classic game between these two. You look at it, 70-63, Kansas defeats Texas in overtime. Sounds like a really fun game, right? Sounds like a game you would want to watch. And I agree. That's why it was on in the 3 o'clock slot. But there was one problem with this game. Right after it was Duke, North Carolina. Coach K's final home game. ESPN put aside 20 minutes to show the entire retirement ceremony before the game started. Kansas, Texas goes into overtime and takes up all 20 minutes of that retirement segment, plus 10 more, because Chris Beard and Bill Self called 4 timeouts in the final 15 seconds of regulation. And there was also a 3-minute-long review on a buzzer-beater shot that didn't count for Kansas to end the game in regulation. So all of this happens. Meanwhile, Duke and North Carolina fans are flipping out trying to find the channel of where their game is to see Coach K's retirement ceremony. And keep in mind that Baylor, Iowa State is supposed to start as well. It's starting at 5 o'clock. And they don't know where they're going. They're confused. Baylor, Iowa State gets moved to ESPN News, so they put Duke, North Carolina on ESPN2, and then they flip it to the ACC network, and then back to ESPN2, because they're so confused about what's going on. No one knew what was going on, and to top it off, North Carolina upsets Duke in Coach K's final home game. One of the most crazy broadcast sequences I've seen in a long time, where there was all this buildup coming into the day just for the complete opposite to happen. I don't know if either of you two got to see this game or heard anything about it, but it was one of the funniest 2.5 hours I've ever spent watching college basketball, because they hyped this game up like North Carolina was going to roll over and die. And
I watched both games.
It's a North
and
Carolina
it's
game. If anyone thought North Carolina was going to roll over and die, you're an idiot.
I mean, they're basing it on how the first game went, where Duke just took over and North Carolina could never do anything.
But
they rolled on in the first game.
Yeah, but you never count anyone out in that game.
That is true.
Doesn't matter how the previous meeting went. Everything changes the second time around.
That is also true. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting – that was just interesting in general. It really was. It was hilarious. I laughed extremely hard where they're like – they started moving the game in a split screen as well, keep in mind. They put Kansas, Texas in overtime on a split screen and Duke, North Carolina pregame on a split screen, and no one was happy with that.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the benefits to not having cable. Because, in all honesty, I was able to watch the whole thing because when you're streaming it, they just have everything on the different stream pod channels.
Yes.
So that's the one bright side, I guess, to not physically having cable. And so I didn't have to worry. So I know what you're talking about because I saw everybody freaking out on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I was sitting there and I just pulled up one browser with the Kansas game and then one browser with the Duke game because I have YouTube TV is what I have, and it's all different segmented stuff. So I was able to kind of pull both of them up at the same time and watch the ending to them. So because I don't know. That's what's funny about how that all works and stuff. And luckily for ESPN, they have a million channels, so they can go back and forth and stream on different stuff. But it was a fun weekend overall, and I thought everything was really cool with all the Duke introductions and stuff, bringing back all the former players.
Yeah, the 96
and everything.
players.
And honestly, this is the one time I wanted. Usually I don't really care. I know there's a lot of people that hate Duke and all that because they're one of the blue blood schools and stuff. I mean, I don't have anything against Duke, but it's the one time I was like, okay, I actually want to see him win because it'd be cool for Coach Cade to go out with the win. But that's not how this rivalry works, and that's not how college basketball or any sport works in general. I feel like when everybody gets hyped up for one thing, that team loses.
That is true. And then the other thing I saw coming out of the game that was hilarious as well was the entire post-game ceremony with the fact that they already lost, so everyone's already disappointed. And then Coach K comes out, he gives an impromptu speech where he apologizes for the way they played and everything. And then I guess there was some person in the crowd who said something, and then you hear him say, "Now just be quiet." And so I saw that flying around social media and everyone being like, Coach K is officially that old man, and he's telling you to get off his lawn one last time. And so that was funny to go through, and just that entire 40-minute ceremony of knowing the fact that this all happened and they lost and there's nothing he could do about it at this point.
No, and honestly, this would be a fun ACC matchup, and we might get it back here.
Yeah, we might get another one.
One last time. hopefully we're able to do that here shortly, because that's a game I'd want to see in the ACC tournament that actually just opened up today. So we'll see how that kind of all shakes out.
Yeah, we will get our way there. But moving on to some of the other games here, going now finally from top to bottom, top 25-wise, and mentioning some conference championship games. Starting with number 2, Arizona, they get an 89-61 win over Cal. Arizona's going to do what Arizona's going to do at this point. You're playing a team like Cal at home, you're going to get a big win. That's just how this Arizona team looks right now.
Yeah, this Arizona team is the real number 1 team in the country. They're a team that continues to go out, take care of business. They've been able to get things rolling, and they're playing their best basketball of the season right now. And they're going to be a tough out, and especially what they've kind of gone through with some of the coaching issues here the last couple of years. Some of those, I don't think they ever actually got sanctions, but they've kind of survived everything that was thrown at them. Arizona keeps finding ways to survive, and that's what this time of the year is all about: survive and advance.
And then moving on to the next one here, Iowa State coming into Waco, getting absolutely embarrassed for the first few minutes of the game. At one point, down 29-4. But the Cyclones rally all the way back. They take the lead, but Baylor holds on to get a 75-68 win and clinch a share of the Big 12 title.
Yeah, this Big 12 was phenomenal this year. I mean, every team top to bottom. I mean, we talked about how many weeks when everybody was over 500 and everything. So it's been a great year for the conference overall. And this game summed it up with the way Iowa State was able to fight back. And obviously Baylor ended up taking care of business. They're the better team there, but especially at home. So Baylor's able to get the job done.
Then moving on to the next one here, we already talked about Duke a little bit. Auburn getting a 82-71 win over South Carolina. A good solid close out the season, get the SEC regular season title for Bruce Pearl's squad.
Yeah, no, Auburn is one of the most undervalued teams in the league this year.
Which is hard to think that they're ranked number 1 and is still undervalued.
Well, I mean, who's talking about Auburn right now? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, they kind of had their peak, and now they're kind of starting to slowly go back down to earth in people's minds.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why if you're Auburn, you love what's going on right now. Like,
because everyone's attention is on Gonzaga, Arizona, and Baylor. No one really cares much about Auburn as much.
Well, I just think it's because they're more known usually to be a football school here, and they've never really been this high. So I think people don't know how to take them seriously or not. This is like their real first kind of true test in a way. And that's even Kansas. I mean, that 5-6 spot, nobody's really talking about Kansas this year. It's always been, Baylor's going for the repeat. And then Texas Tech obviously has the coaching change. They're still up there. And then obviously Chris Beard taking over at Texas. No one's really talking about Kansas. They're another team that I feel like are going to go out and surprise some people say surprise is the 6th seed, but just because no one's really talking about them. They're being overlooked, especially in the conference too.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird year. I mean, we've said this how many times now, but the amount of teams that you would think would be talked about and aren't being talked about is just insane. Another one here, Kentucky. Kentucky, they became the hot commodity a few weeks ago. They lose a game to Arkansas, and boom, suddenly no one's talking about them. They go to Florida. They pick up a solid win against the Gators, get a 71-63 win on the road.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting one because the Gators played them well. That's one Florida needed at home. That's one you really were hoping to pull off that upset. And I think if they could have won that game, that would almost solidified a spot for them in the March Madness. But dropping that game we'll see how they shape out in the SEC playoffs here coming up. But that's one the Gators I think really needed to push them through the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe just having a big day. He's had such a phenomenal season out there at Kentucky. 27 points in this one, just continuing to dominate and be a traditional center that you don't see a whole lot, especially in the modern day of college basketball.
Exactly. I think he was rewarded. I think he was
I
first team.
So.
I think he made the first team All-NCAA team or whatever. And I think he has a shot. I don't think they've announced the Player of the Year award, but he'll have a shot at that as well.
And then moving on to the next one here, Indiana-Purdue. This was a classic. This is your classic rivalry you expect from these two teams. Purdue getting a big shot late to knock off the Hoosiers, keep the upset at bay, 69-67. Good win there for the Boilermakers.
Yeah, they're a team that for some reason can't put it all together. Like they're a team I thought that was going to be up in the top, be one seed in the March Madness, but they've just had so much up and down so far this year. And I mean, like you said, it was a big rivalry, so to see it close wasn't fully surprising, but We'll see what they're able to do. I like the team overall, and I think if they start to click better, that they could make a run. But I'm surprised to see them kind of still struggling a little bit.
It is a bit surprising. I mean, considering all the weapons that they have, that they just can't close a game out. They really can't.
Exactly.
They win, but it doesn't feel like they won. And this was another example of it, where it felt like Indiana made this giant push all the way to take the lead and win the game, and then Purdue hits a shot and wins.
Well, that's the main reason why they're kind of on first teams out. They're kind of just hanging in there barely.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue is kind of they've danced around. At one point, people thought they were 1 seed. Then they kind of danced around 2, 3. They're always a trendy pick of teams to get beat in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's never a fun time being a Purdue basketball fan.
They're more likely going to end up being a 2 seed.
Probably.
Yeah, we'll see if
they'll at least make it to the second round.
If they fall first game in the Big Ten, they'll.
If they fall first game Big Ten tourney, there's
trouble.
Well, I mean, it's very realistic because they have a bye. I mean, they'll wait.
Yeah,
they'll wait till
they could lose to the bye too. That is a possibility.
That's
you
true.
can put the bye team there instead, and they might give them a shot.
Because you got to remember, there's gonna be 2 rounds before Purdue plays, so you're gonna possibly have a team coming in hot and can definitely pull off that upset against them.
That is true. Then moving on to the next one here, Villanova, just being Villanova. They're just existing. All they got to do, walk into Hinkle Fieldhouse, beat Butler by 19, no problem. 78-59, just Big East things.
No, not at all. Very, very good week for Nova. The big one was that Tuesday. We previewed or whatever last week.
Yeah, that was the big one.
Beating Providence, and we'll see what happens. Again,
beating Providence to not win the Big East despite the fact that you have more wins than them.
You know my feelings on that, right? If you listened last week. But we'll take care of it when we beat them in the championship for a third time.
All right. And then the next one here, big one for you guys, I know. Oklahoma State finishing the year the right way, getting an upset over Texas Tech, getting a gritty 52-51 win.
Getting a much needed win since obviously no postseason for us. So obviously Ikley and Bryce Williams last game in Gallagher-Iba, and obviously it was just a weird game. No one could freaking shoot for half the second half. No one could make a basket.
No, that's the way Oklahoma State loves to play. They're gonna crush you on defense. They play suffocating defense, and that's really, if you go back and look at their last 5 games, I think it was, you have this game, you win 52-51. You have Iowa State, I think you won 52-36.
Yeah, I mean,
then you lost to OU, I think 66-64, something like that in overtime. So it's probably high 50s in regulation.
Yeah, it was high 50s in regulation.
Then you lost to Baylor 63 to 61, something like that in overtime again.
They don't give up more than 65. If you get to like 70 on them, you've either had an insane shooting night or OSU has completely done something wrong.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and that's what's fun about this team is
it was like the only team that was able to do that was Kansas. Everyone else, not so much.
Yeah, Kansas found a way. I think they put like 88 on his choice. They're the only teams that really found a way. I'm interested to see what happens at OSU this offseason, just because there's already a couple of guys I think that are entering the transfer portal, and I don't know.
Donovan Williams.
That's what it was. I don't know.
He's the only guy I know that's in the transfer portal.
And I don't know if you guys saw this. I sent it to my buddy, so let me try to pull it up real quick. Because it's funny with what happened to OSU in terms of all the with the sanctions and stuff. I don't know if you saw this. This was on Twitter the other day. A reporter put out Mike Boynton's quote on other programs are recruiting his players who aren't even in the transfer portal. This stuff's crazy right now. I know for a fact there are multiple guys on our team that are now being recruited by other universities without being in the portal. It's disgusting. It's like, okay, so first off, who's these teams? And like, there's no way that's legal. Like, so, and here's the thing, the one guy, which I'm interested to see what happens, is why am I blanking on his name? The guy who got Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, the guy from Memphis, the center, Cisse. Yeah, Cisse. He's probably one of those guys. So I'm hoping they don't lose him. And
you're pretty much hoping you can keep most of those guys that pretty much all the guys you currently have.
Listen, if he transfers to Northwestern, do you accept it?
Well, obviously.
Do you accept that?
But why would you think he'd come here?
I'm just doing it for the joke.
I know.
We need a big. We need a defensive big. We lost Bubba.
But obviously, for what Oklahoma State needs to do for next season, for this next upseason, get a guard that can shoot. consistently good.
Yeah.
Like, because when Bryce or Anderson the third get on fire, yeah, they can shoot, but the problem is they cannot do it consistently. They're most of the games they've played, they don't score more than 10 points a game.
Well, and that's the thing with Avery Anderson. He's capable of being on the Big 12 team, whether it's first or second, if they can get a shooter for him. He's going to go out and he's going to be quicker than a lot of guys, but his game isn't to shoot. So you need a consistent shooter on the wing that he's going to be able to pick up assists and stuff, because that's not his game. So like you said, you need to get that consistent shooter to help his game out. That way he can worry about driving and stuff.
You need more offensive threats, because otherwise you're going to be in for tough. Because many of the games that they ended up losing, you could literally take half of those, and if they have consistent scoring where they're able to keep making baskets, they would easily beat teams. Heck, Kansas probably wouldn't have dominated Oklahoma State twice this season if they had some consistency in shooting.
Okay. Don't worry. There's just car. Our normal car drives by at a really fast speed, which is probably illegal considering where they're driving by in our studio. But you know what? We'll let them be. That's completely normal. But moving on. Next game here, Arkansas, Tennessee. A fun game in the second half. Not so fun in the first half, unless you're a Tennessee fan. The Vols just put it on the Hogs in the first half, but Arkansas crawls back to only lose 78-74.
Yeah, how about this Tennessee team?
We talked about Arkansas last week. Now you got Tennessee doing this week.
They've had a story of 3 different seasons. They got off to a great start. They got some good wins. Then the middle ground was kind of tough. They should have won a couple games. They didn't. And now this last week of the season, or
they're finishing strong.
Last few weeks of the season, yeah, especially this last week, they're finished strong. And they're starting to click at the right time. And I'll tell you what, no one really talks about SEC basketball, but this could be one of the best playoffs, especially in the SEC, that we've seen in a while.
I saw where people were trying to make the argument that the SEC could finish as the best basketball conference this year. And there's a possibility of it if, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Auburn, if they all play like they're capable of, there's a possibility. We know Texas has weaknesses. We know Texas Tech does. We know Kansas and Baylor do. Why not the SEC? This could be their year.
No, I agree with you, especially the funny part, too, is Alabama was supposed to be a lot better, and they've actually been playing worse. So they should have another team in there.
Considering Alabama and LSU were kind of hyped more at the beginning of the year, and they haven't played as good as they were supposed to, but the other teams are carrying.
Yeah, it's going to be a 3-way race between how the Big 12 shapes out, the SEC, and then the Big 10. Obviously, the Big 10's got a lot of top teams, and then we'll see there's a little spread out there like Ohio State and everything. So we'll see how it shapes out.
And then another big one, 16 and 17 going at it. Going to be the Trojans of USC walking into Pauley Pavilion and not being able to get a win. The Bruins getting a 75-68 win. It was a fun one. It was a Pac-12 after dark game. You had the Bill Walton funny time. You had a good basketball game. They got a little chaotic. UCLA had one player get called on 3 straight fouls in about 15 seconds. That was a funny part of the game. This is a Pac-12 after dark game. Need I say more?
No, not at all. We can just leave it at that.
You'll just leave it at that.
No, it was a fun game to watch, and USC is a team that's playing better than they really should have been this year, and going up against a UCLA team that's kind of struggled this season. So that was a good win for UCLA to find a way to, even though it's at home, it was a good way for them to find a way to pull that one out going into the playoffs here.
And then the next one to break up, UConn getting a 75-68 win over DePaul. This one kind of scary for a while for the Huskies. Kind of letting DePaul hang around. You don't want to be the team that loses to DePaul, but they were eventually able to shut the Blue Demons down, and big win for UConn.
That's just the way DePaul is, I feel like. They'll never win games, but
they'll scare you.
Yeah, for some reason they know how to scare everybody, but then when it comes down to the final stretch, they just always find a way to lose these games. And I'm hoping one of these days that they're able to find some type of rhythm, just because, again, they usually play teams
say that, and then
close.
They'll beat Villanova, and you'll be very
upset.
Hey,
they've beaten Nova recently. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. It's frustrating to lose that team.
I bet it is. And then moving on, the OVC championship game. This was a fun one. Don't know how much of this one either of you two saw, but Murray State punched the first bid to the tournament, a 71-67 win over Morehead State. These are 2 very solid teams. These are 2 teams not talked about a whole lot this year. Murray State obviously getting more recognition, being nationally ranked. But these were just 2 incredibly fun teams to watch going at it. Murray State, we talked about this last week, Andrew, the skin of their teeth. They love winning games as close as possible, and they did it again.
Well, how else would they win?
Yeah, it was
What conference was it?
this is Ohio Valley. This is OVC. This is always a fun tournament. It's the first one to finish. You get that Saturday night in Evansville where that place is packed at the Ford Center, and it's always an extremely fun time. It really is.
Absolutely. And Murray State's a fun team to watch. It's just I don't know how these close wins are going to transpire in the March.
That's the one thing that makes me scared about them is I don't know if they're actually good or not because they win. They keep winning, but they keep winning at such a close pace. I can't tell that if the OVC is just really good or if Murray State is just kind of overrated. I don't really know.
It could. It's obviously one or the other, but obviously March Madness will be a test for them to see if how good they actually are.
And I'm interested to see where they're going to get the draw here next Sunday, because with everything going on, these close games, how are they going to mark that? I kind of see them being probably about a 6 or 7 is my guess of what they'll give them.
They'll be where Chicago was last year, despite being ranked pretty good.
So you think they'll be kind of that 8-9 range, or okay, kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'd say 6 or 7.
All right, well. Alabama, LSU, the final top 25 game to get to here. And LSU getting that much-needed win if they want to keep a higher seed. Getting an 80-77 OT win over Alabama.
Yeah, but that game was a fun game to watch, too. It was a big-time block. At the end, Alabama was going for the tie. And, Alabama was going for the lead, and then the LSU block led a fast break there to go up by 3 points there and kind of finalize that game. That was a lot of fun to watch, that one.
Yeah, that one was a good one. Then I got to mention it, just for my sake at least. Oklahoma beats K-State for the first time in 10 years in Manhattan. They finally did it. Ladies and gentlemen, Oklahoma is winning the national championship.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a March Madness lock there. Does that make them the lock?
You got to win the Big 12 championship first.
Listen, I don't need them to win to declare them the national champions. I'm declaring it right now. I'm just joking. They might win the NIT for all I know. But
that's more likely what would happen.
This Oklahoma team has been a lot of fun to watch these past 3 games because they remembered 2 things. Number 1, how to play good defense when the offense doesn't work. Number 2, someone remembers how to shoot the ball in clutch situations. This time it was Umoja Gibson. He had 29 points. He finally had a good game on the road. I'm so proud of him.
You finally had someone who actually can shoot now.
We finally figured out how to shoot the basketball somewhat. It took us a while, but let me tell you.
Took you too long to figure that out.
Well, you never know. Baylor might mentally collapse, in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, they could.
They very well could. Oklahoma has kind of played their way back right on the edge of bubble land, so a win over Baylor in the Big 12 tournament would do them a whole lot of good.
I think if you guys can at least make a semifinal run, it'll do you some good.
Yeah, there's just one game. Just one game. That's all I ask for.
One game.
Speaking of one game, Nebraska got that one game. They beat Wisconsin 74-73. This was a weird Sunday game. I really don't know how this happened. I mean, Wisconsin, Johnny Davis going down, which is never a fun sight to see. From what I've heard, it wasn't as bad as initially thought. It might have just been a sprain. But Nebraska, 3 wins in a row on the road. In the entire Fred Hoiberg era, before that, they won 1 road game. They won 3 in the past 2 weeks.
Nebraska's figured something out. They're playing extremely well.
Welcome to Nebraska ball. Yeah. Actual name.
Bro.
Actual fan name, not made up by me. I wish I made that up.
That'd be more funny if you made it up.
It would have.
The fact that it's real, it's just like, wait, what?
Don't question the corn people.
I mean, the N stands for knowledge.
The N on the helmet does stand for knowledge. This is known. This is true. And then other big upset, Memphis just dominating Houston. This was another interesting one, 75-61. Tigers are playing well. They really are. They've found their rhythm, it seems like, and if they can continue to get these big wins, roll into the American tourney, try to sneak a few more out.
They're playing their best basketball. They're a team that's they have a real chance, obviously, depending on matchups. They got a real chance to win 2 or 3 games in the March Madness, which is going to surprise some people. But depending on matchups, they could definitely get it done and play into the second weekend.
They could.
Because Memphis, at the halfway point, was struggling to really get much going because they were constantly dealing with a lot of injury issues, but they managed to, over time, get that figured out and start winning games. And they're really one of the teams I would probably consider as one of the lower seeds if they can manage to get a few more good wins in.
Yeah.
If they win but obviously your best shot is to obviously win the American.
Yeah, and then next big game here, Illinois officially clinching a nice share of that Big Ten title, getting the number 1 seed overall in the tournament, I believe, with a 74-72 win over Iowa. Kofi Coburn, big day for him, 21 points. And the Illini looking really good right now.
Yeah, no, I will continue to say it. They're one of the most fun teams to watch in the country.
They are.
And as much as I don't like what he did to OSU, Brad Underwood teams are always one of the best to watch, and they will always be a conference title contender and a March Madness contender. I mean, you look at this; they're ranked 20 in the country right now, and they're the number 1 seed going to the Big Ten, and that's with teams that are ranked in the top 10
that's
in
with
the
Purdue and
conference.
Wisconsin.
Like that just shows how well he's able to coach those teams. And obviously, even when he was with Stephen F. Austin, they were a team you'd always look out for as an upset team. So whatever he does, it always finds a way to work, and they're starting to get healthy at the right time as well. They're definitely a team to look out for.
Then you move on here. Michigan getting a big one as well, needing to stay alive. A 75-69 win over Ohio State. And Juwan Howard officially reinstated as the head coach. I need that Michigan-Wisconsin game. That's all I'm saying. If there's a way that needs to happen, the college basketball gods need that game to happen. Just to see, just for scientific purposes.
Let's see. I have the bracket on my phone. Give me a second. For Michigan, Wisconsin, it looks like it's going to have to be the championship.
Unfortunately. It can happen, though.
Oh, no. Yeah, championship. Sorry.
Oh.
I was like, Michigan State was second round. Michigan State could be second round.
Hopes up there for
You got our hopes up, Andrew.
How dare you do that?
Speaking of getting hopes up, Longwood needs to have their hopes up. They're Big South champs. They beat Winthrop 79-58. Just absolutely destroyed them to punch their first ever ticket to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no, good for them. I mean, they did it in dominating fashion, too. I mean, they didn't even make that game close. So congratulations to them. We'll see who they get drawn and where.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a fun time for the Lancers. Also a fun time for Loyola Chicago. Going again through Arch Madness, getting a win over Drake, 64-58, punching another ticket to the NCAA tournament.
Never a team to count out. They always find a way to win.
I don't even see Loyola Chicago on there.
Well, you won't see them now because we switched the schedule.
God dang it.
But moving on to Monday games, WCC tourney, always a fun time, and Gonzaga doing what they do. An 81-71 win over San Francisco. The number 1 team in the country continues to look like a pretty solid team. I would think they're number 1 for a reason, despite what certain other people in this room may say. They're always a fun team to keep an eye on. And then moving on, St. Mary's taking on Santa Clara. Fun one there. St. Mary's just getting by with a 75-72 win in the late-night fun game.
Yeah, I think Santa Clara needed this game. I think it's funny that everyone counts San Francisco as a team that's probably going to get the March Madness when Santa Clara was the 3 in this conference. So they're obviously done something right to be a little bit better than San Francisco. So they really needed that, steal that game and have a chance at an at-large bid. But that loss pretty much took that one away. And I'm interested to see now what happens with San Francisco. But it sets up the 2 best teams here tonight for the championship game, and it'll be exciting.
It definitely will be.
It's gonna be a hard fought one because these are the 2 teams you typically see go in the West Coast Conference title.
Yeah, these are the 2 teams you usually see. And meanwhile, in another fun one, the SoCon, Furman and Chattanooga. This game going back and forth, going to overtime, and the Mocs getting a win on a buzzer beater 3, 64-63 in overtime. Huge win for Chattanooga.
What a way to punch your ticket to the dance with Furman scores to take the lead, and then all of a sudden they come back and drill that 3. And it wasn't even like it was an open. I get it, obviously half court shots tough no matter what, but it wasn't even like it was an open one. Like it was a contested one right in front of the half court line, and just an unbelievable shot that sends them there to the next game now.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a fun shot. I feel like we got to watch it here. Just watching this entire sequence. Obviously, this is very blurry, but you get the sense there. Boom, big-time shot. Absolutely fun.
I mean,
pure
just
devastation
yeah,
on the face there.
I was like, imagine me on the other side of that. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that Furman team feels.
Yeah, I would not know how they would feel. That is just
Imagine getting hit on a half-court buzzer beater. Couldn't be me.
yeah, it couldn't be me. Never seen that one happen before. But I
do feel bad for Furman because that's just something you just don't. It sucks being on the receiving end of stuff like that.
It does. It is never a fun time when that that stuff happens. I mean, I've seen it before in the Big 12 tournament where Buddy Hield hits a buzzer beater 3 and then they wave it off.
I remember that.
I'm still upset about that.
I was watching that.
It probably was the right call, but I will forever be upset about that.
Because probably it was the right call.
Sir, we're not going to let facts get in the way of how I feel about that game.
I was watching that with an OU fan too, so I get where you're at.
I was not livid would be the best way to describe it, but very angry is probably one of the better ways to say it. But
So you were livid.
I was not livid. I was super livid. But moving on to some of these other ones here. Big championship games again tonight. Wagner taking on Bryant. Do we have a score update on that game? We should. That game should be pretty close to over with. This is a rare 4 o'clock Central Time. Never mind, they moved it to 6. Wagner getting a 2-2 tie right now with Bryant. So we'll check in on that one later on in the day. This is the one I was thinking of it for. How about this? This is probably one of the crazier results you will ever see happen in a tournament. Bellarmine beats Jacksonville to win the A-Sun. Huge miracle story. Transitional program from Division II to Division I. Huge win for them. Here's a problem. Bellarmine cannot make the NCAA tourney. They're a Division II team moving up to D1. They're in the 4-year transfer period. They cannot make the D1 tourney.
Oh.
Jacksonville also cannot make the D1 tourney.
So you don't have anyone from that conference
Jacksonville State, who lost yesterday, will represent the A-Sun in the NCAA tournament because they tied for the regular season championship with Bellarmine.
You should give it like they should have gone to the runner-up because at least they made to the conference championship game.
You would think, but that's not how the A-Sun rules are written.
Well, it basically does go to the runner-up because they tied for first in the regular season with Bellarmine. So since both those teams can't make it, it is going to the right team.
It is going to the highest-ranked team. Yeah. It's just one of those interesting formats that I saw a lot of people, Liberty gets beat and then Jacksonville wins. And I saw, congratulations, Jacksonville. You made – wait, no, hold up, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Got to win, and they could not get it done. So congrats to the Knights on a wonderful season. Unfortunately, it can't advance from here.
And that's the rule I don't understand.
I think it's to prevent teams from, okay, we're going to be D1. Okay, we're going to be bad this year. We're going to drop down to D2 now.
Okay,
if you free flow, I guess is what they're worried about happening.
But see, for me, that makes more sense if you're going from D1 to D2 and you have to wait because you're taking your better talent to lower level. But to me, that's more impressive going from a lower level to a higher level. So you're technically having D2 players transition into D1. Yeah. So to me, that story right there is impressive, and you shouldn't punish a team for trying to go up against better competition. I don't know.
I agree. I don't understand the rules. I don't make them. We just have to watch it happen. Yeah.
I think in a circumstance like that, I get feel like those rules are more meant for football rather than other sports because you just have teams that can fluctuate from being really good to being really bad regardless of what division they're in. So it's just feels odd that you go all this work, the fact that they were able to play the postseason in the conference tournament and then do what they did. So it's okay.
Yeah, it really is an interesting time, and I don't know why the rule is set up like that. I will never know. Yeah. We will never know. What I can tell you is Wright State, Northern Kentucky, Horizon League Championship right now. Northern Kentucky up 8-7 on Wright State. The Norse trying to get another road back to the NCAA tournament. Should be an interesting one there. It's always a fun league to keep an eye on the horizon. And then we mentioned it already, St. Mary's Gonzaga, number 1 versus number 17 tonight on ESPN at 8. And don't forget the Summit League, Dakota State battle, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, 8:30 or 8 o'clock on ESPN2. I don't know where I got 8:30 from.
Buffaloes and the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, the good old Bison and the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State actually is a fun team to watch. If you've not seen them yet, I encourage you to watch them. The number 1 3-point shooting team in college basketball. They shoot at 45% from deep every single game. They're a talented offense, and there's a reason why people think they can make some noise in the tournament. But as we move on to bracketology time, one of our favorite pastimes in America checking what Joe Lunardi thinks so we don't have to think it ourselves.
Well, it's better than the other American pastime right now.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Maybe. We'll see. But moving on, looking at our beautiful 68-team projected bracket, first four, obviously, you got your fun ones: Nicholls State, Alcorn State, Xavier, Wyoming in battle of 12 seeds, UNC Wilmington and Bryant, and Rutgers and SMU making it in as your other 12-seed game. Now, that would be a really fun game, I think, Rutgers versus SMU.
That is robbery for Rutgers if they get a playing game. That will actually make me pretty mad.
Why? They gotta tell themselves SMU's a top 25 team so they can beat them.
I'm just saying Rutgers is a lot better than a playing game so far this year. That is if they get that would be a disappointing seeding for them. I'm hoping they can steal a game or two in the Big Ten playoffs because they deserve better than that.
They do. They really do. It'll be intriguing for sure, I guess is the best way to put it. But starting in the West, Gonzaga, what a shock here, number 1 seed. TCU and 8, San Diego State and 9. Interesting matchup there, I think. Look at the 5-12 UConn and North Texas. Your 4-13 Arkansas and Vermont, kind of two of your heavy hitter upset alerts there with Vermont and North Texas, both pretty good, solid teams this year. 6-11 LSU versus Michigan, 3-14 Texas Tech Seattle, 7-10 Colorado State and Wake Forest, and the 2-15 Wisconsin and Long Beach State.
Honestly, if Joe Lunardi aced that part, I'd pick Arkansas to come out of that region.
I would too. I mean, that is a fun team to watch. That is a great team to watch. I do not trust UConn. I do not trust Gonzaga. I do not trust LSU or Michigan to win anything.
Yeah, will that game even end with the winner?
Yeah, that somehow Texas Tech's just going to win that game by default, actually.
Texas Tech gets a bye.
Yeah, Tech gets a bye. Wisconsin, I don't trust. I never trust the slower-paced teams.
Especially after losing Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, you lose to Nebraska, you lose all credibility as a team.
Yeah, right there, I'd pick Arkansas versus Texas Tech in the Elite Eight.
That would be a fun old Southwest Conference battle. Then you look at the South. Baylor versus Norfolk State is your 116 projected. Michigan State, San Francisco, an 8-9. Alabama, a 5-12 against South Dakota State. UCLA, Iona, your 4 versus 13. 6-seeded Iowa, 11-seeded Davidson, 3-seed Tennessee, 14-seed Princeton. Boise State 7, Creighton at 10, Duke at the 2-seed, and Jacksonville State. There they are at the 15 spot.
Tennessee's probably going to be, I'd say, on the bottom side of the bracket. I'd say Tennessee's probably going to be the favorite to get to the Elite Eight because I just think overall they're probably a better team than Duke.
I completely agree with that.
I could see that, but it would not surprise me if Davidson just somehow went on a run.
Oh, that
is a solid team.
Davidson's a really good team, but obviously I'd say you have Davidson, Tennessee, and Duke probably as the favorites, 3 favorites for that bottom. More likely I'll see Tennessee going into the Elite Eight. I think out of the top part, it's either going to be UCLA or Baylor, and I'm probably going to have Baylor go back to the Final Four.
I could see Michigan State if things go the right way. I could see them.
You basically need
finding
Baylor
a way
to kind of do what they've done quite a few times this season. Just kind of forget how to shoot.
What's going to come down to Baylor, and first off, let me say, I do agree with you. I think Baylor would come out of this region in the Final Four. But what's going to come down to Baylor, and they've done a fairly well job in the Big 12 overcoming these injuries.
Yeah.
But I'm interested when you're challenged against, I mean, obviously it's like every other night until you get that little break, but basically playing every day almost, and then going up against top-tier teams back-to-back like that. How is that going to challenge them with the injuries? But I really like the Baylor team again, and they got one of the best coaches in the league. I will say this, though. One of the best games that would come out of this region, if this was to happen, is that Alabama-South Dakota State
That would
game.
be
That game will be back and forth the whole time.
That would be
honestly a tough game to pick. And really, the way UCLA plays up and down this year, if South Dakota State found a way to win that game, you can see South Dakota State in the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
you very
much
could.
so, yeah.
Especially with, imagine this too, they got Rick Pitino coaching that 13 game.
Yeah,
there,
that
so
Iona
13
team's
seed,
not bad by
they
any
might
means.
find a way. You might get a 12-13
Yeah,
there.
you might get one of those Jackrabbits versus Baylor in the Sweet 16, just random games like that. I mean, that is a possibility. Now, going to the bottom brackets here, starting with the East Side in Philadelphia, Kansas, Northern Kentucky is a 116 matchup. Seton Hall's an 8, Murray State at a 9. That's where the Racers are projected right now. Houston is the 5 spot. Xavier, Wyoming winner would be the 12. Illinois is that 4, and Toledo is a 13. Move Ohio State at 6, Memphis at 11, Villanova at 3, and Longwood a 14. USC a 7, Notre Dame a 10. Yeah, there's fun rivalry right there. And Kentucky 2, Georgia State a 15.
This has the potential for a lot of good matchups. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the first round matchups if this was happening.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot of second rounders.
There's a lot of potential here, and honestly, and I was going to call me a homer, but honestly love this region for Nova if this happens. You got one of the weaker 2s and one of the weaker 1s as well, and you get to play in your hometown. This region is in Philadelphia, so if you make it
Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Yeah, if you make it to the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, that game is being played in a stadium. You've played 3 games this season already.
This would be one of those where you don't even leave your state till the Final Four.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
As I say, that's why I love that. Plus, I've been saying this all year. Notre Dame as a 10 is a huge sleeper. They could pull off the upset against Kentucky.
Yeah. I'd say for the 8 and 9, Seton Hall or Murray State could easily upset Kansas. But that's
I'm
obviously
calling it right now. Houston gets this draw. They don't get out of the second round. Not a fan of Houston.
Houston, because you obviously have Illinois. You have Illinois, but also you never know if you'll get upset by the 12 seed. But
yeah,
Illinois, I think, will make it to Sweet 16. They'll probably play Kansas, more than likely either that or Murray State. And obviously that game's kind of been up in there. I think Nova overall, I'd probably picking them to get to go to the Elite 8.
Yeah,
I don't know about the Final Four, but I definitely Elite 8.
I'd pick Illinois versus Villanova here. That'd be my Elite 8 in this region.
Yeah. I think that's a very likely matchup. The Illini versus Nova.
Yeah, that would be more than likely what I think would happen. And then final region here, the Midwest region. Arizona is the 1 seed taking on UNC Wilmington or Bryant in that first 4 battle. North Carolina an 8 seed, Iowa State at 9. Texas a 5 seed versus either Rutgers or SMU. Providence is the 4 seed, Chattanooga is the 13. St. Mary's versus Loyola Chicago is the 6-11.
That's going to be a fun one.
Purdue a 3 seed, Montana State at 14. Marquette 7 versus Miami at 10, and then Auburn a 2 seed, Colgate a 15 seed.
Yeah, this region's got a lot of good games. I think North Carolina, depending on how the ACC shapes up, 8 seed could be a little bit of a surprise and a little bit of a bad draw for North Carolina if that happens. Checked in at number 25 this week in this week's rankings. So that'd be a surprising 8 seed depending on what happens, obviously, in the ACC. Rutgers here, I'd like them to win 2 games at least before they'd probably go up against Providence. That'd be a fun second-round matchup where they could actually win that. Let's see. If I had a pick here out of this region, I'd have to go Arizona Final Four. I'd probably go Arizona versus honestly, St. Mary's could possibly do that. But I go chalk here. I'd go Arizona Auburn.
Yeah,
I think out of that bottom group, it's Auburn and St. Mary's are going to probably more likely meet up in the Sweet 16. I mean, obviously Purdue could actually be there, but I think it really doesn't matter. I think Auburn will get to the Elite 8, but Arizona, it's just going to be too much to handle. Like, when you're that much better than everybody in your own conference, like, not even close. I mean, I know USC and UCLA are really good, but it just feels like Arizona's in a league of their own in regards to their conference.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those. I think Arizona could be beaten, but not in this bracket provided, because honestly, I wouldn't know if Texas would even get to that game against them. I'm not sure Providence could even get to that game against them. This could be an Arizona-Rutgers for all I know. Sweet 16.
Yeah, the Sweets. I would probably go with whoever's the 12 seed. Probably, well, maybe not much on SMU, but Rutgers definitely could sneak their way to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I know this is something
Texas,
Andrew and
I don't trust Texas.
I trust none of the teams in this entire quadrant here of Arizona all the way down to Chattanooga. I trust 0 teams to win any games. Except Arizona to win that first-round game, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But as we look at the top here, looking back at the kind of first four, this whole fun debacle that is always fun. We're debating hypotheticals versus other hypotheticals. This doesn't even mean anything, but it's always fun to talk about. Last 4 byes, as projected by Joe Lunardi: Wake Forest, Creighton, Memphis, and Michigan. The last 4 in: Xavier, Wyoming, Rutgers, SMU. Your first 4 out: Indiana, BYU, Dayton, and Virginia Tech. Your next 4 out: Virginia, VCU, Florida, Texas A&M. A lot of Virginia teams just on the other side of the bubble.
Yeah, it's actually it's weird for Virginia and VCU to not make the tourney.
It is.
Those are the 2 schools that's kind of weird. I know Florida usually makes the tournament because they're usually pretty good at basketball, but it's like I'm not surprised because Florida's not that great overall. Indiana is still a bit surprising, but then again, obviously with the way their season is gone. But yeah, overall, there's just only mainly 2 teams I'm surprised that are just on the outs. But obviously, they didn't have as good seasons as they would like. Especially if you're Virginia, you go from winning the national title 3 years ago to you're basically struggling to get in.
Yeah, and
but obviously lots changed since then. So
I've already brought it up once on the show, but I'm gonna bring it up again. How as it was funny is, and I obviously I know strength of schedule comes to play and everything, but you have San Francisco, not even in the last 4 byes, and then you have BYU, the first 4 out. That is your 4-5 seed in the West Coast Conference, where your number 3 seed isn't even being talked about on the bubble, and they won 21 games this year. To me, and obviously again, I know strength of schedule and all those numbers come into play. But looking at their schedule, and I know these aren't top tier teams, but they're big conference teams.
They're good teams.
They beat Stanford by 16 points. They beat TCU by 19 points. They beat St. Mary's is probably their best win.
Okay, not to cut you off, it's like they beat TCU by 19, yet TCU's in the tournament.
Exactly. So they beat a March Madness team there, and I mean. They beat St. Mary's one. And here's the problem. I get it head-to-head here. They got swept to San Francisco, so that's where San Francisco gets the edge on that. But my point is they're not even being talked about. And they're a 21-win team, and the 3 seed in that conference where you're 4 or 5 are potentially getting in. That's what's crazy to me.
Exactly.
And obviously I'm not the one making the decision on Sunday, but I really think Santa Clara should be a team that is at least talked about.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way when you look at the A-10. You look at a team like Dayton, who's right here on the bubble. What difference is there between Dayton and Wyoming? Dayton's got probably one of the best wins of any team, beating Kansas. I mean, granted, that was a win back in November, but this is a Dayton team that I've watched them. They're young, they're talented, they're fun. Yes, they have some bad losses at the beginning of the year, and I understand that's probably what's keeping them out. But you have to look, this is a much different Dayton team than the first 3 games.
Yeah.
This team right now in March is a lot different than a bunch of freshmen and sophomores playing their first game of the year as a starter back in November.
Obviously, this is just what Joe Lunardi thinks, so we don't know what teams
he is
are
not
actually
the
going to
committee.
be in, but he's usually, for the most part,
pretty accurate.
He's usually
There's a
pretty
reason
good.
why he does this all the time.
Yeah, that is true.
And why he gets paid to do it. But it's like, overall, I think he'll probably be correct again by 80% of these teams will get in. But some the West Coast Conference, though obviously we only usually look at 1 or 2 teams from them usually getting in, like St. Mary's and Gonzaga. We have to remember, some of us obviously going to have to are kind of realizing, looking at some of this stuff, is the West Coast Conference has some really good teams that should get in, but it's just not. Because of obviously they're a mid-major conference, no one's going to care. But obviously they're willing to forgive Gonzaga for anything they've had, any drops that they ever have.
So last thing here, or at least for this game, since we were talking about it, what was it, 4-2, 2 minutes ago?
That's true.
Bryant's now up 23-4.
Okay.
In that 5-minute span, we broke down the bracket.
All right. I'm glad that
Bryant's taking full control.
I'm glad that Bryant has decided they wanted to win. So I'm proud of them for figuring that one out. That's one where you call timeout. Hey, let's win. Okay, coach, we got it. We got it. Say no more.
We got this, coach.
Say no more. Let's go win a tourney.
What a run!
Yeah,
run there.
That is an insane 21-2 run.
Nice.
Since we started talking about the NCAA tournament. But moving on to the NBA now, it has been a wild last week, I guess you could say. We've had fun collapses. We've had even more fun with storylines. We'll get to a certain one I know that'll make you very happy, Andrew, about a certain player coming back to a certain city. Not actually
He's
on
not
the
showing
court.
up. He's not showing up.
They said
I don't care what the report.
We'll just get into it. Steve Nash said Ben Simmons is going to be in Philadelphia on the bench. He didn't say he's going to start, but he's going to be there in the city and said that'll be a good learning experience for him. I don't know what he's trying to prove here. Learn how much he's hated by the city of Philadelphia or the entire state of Pennsylvania? I don't know.
I guess learn to be hated by the entire
city. He just needs to talk to Kevin Durant once about that. That's not he doesn't need to be in Philadelphia to learn how to be hated.
Exactly. It's like everyone looked back to the first time Durant came back to OKC with the Warriors. He got booed to oblivion.
It was a fun game.
It was hilarious.
We need more cupcake songs.
Well, there's gonna be some good signs there, especially if he doesn't play. The section across from the Nets bench is gonna be just ballistic there.
If they don't make fun of him the entire game.
Well, and then there's all this talk. Should he get a tribute video and all that? Please, make a tribute video because that is going to be the most laughable video ever.
Can you show a tribute video of him missing every layup in the playoffs?
I'm pretty sure what the Sixers are going to do. I think they should do is that the media team just puts together a video compilation of him messing up all the time.
I need it to start like a normal tribute video, and it cuts to Joel Embiid saying "not," and then like the old Borat "not," and then a compilation of every miss in the playoffs, and then finally end it with him passing the ball when he had a wide open layup in Game 7, and just end it and be like, "Thanks, Ben Simmons, for nothing."
Just be absolute savage and just destroy him.
Just do it. It would be the funniest tribute video you could possibly come up with.
I'm going to be glued to my TV
that
day. I'm interested to see what's going to go down. I honestly, at this point, would still be surprised if he steps foot inside the stadium once the game starts. I could see him going through some like pre-game shoot-around stuff before the fans get there.
He's going to go in and shoot around and then leave.
He's gonna watch the game. He's
going to go into witness protection.
It's gonna be funny to watch, and I mean, you heard me say it from the day he was traded. I didn't expect him to play in this game, so we'll see what actually happens. But I'm hoping at some point he'll play there. But it's gonna be a mess Thursday night.
Yeah, well, we'll get to a potential scenario in a moment, but rolling through the East real quick, Miami staying put at number 1, Philadelphia already climbing up to 2, Milwaukee at 3. Chicago at 4, Boston 5. Boston just continuing to play well right now. Cleveland at 6, Toronto at 7, Charlotte 8, Brooklyn falling again to 9, and Atlanta half a game behind them at 10. Then you look at the 5 not in, Washington at 11. Kristaps Porzingis finally making his debut for the Wizards on Sunday, I believe it was. The Knicks at 12, and they continue to free fall. The Pacers at 13, the Pistons 14, and the Magic 15. So, an interesting time in the East. You're seeing that surge that Philadelphia and Milwaukee are making. And if you're a Heat fan, are you concerned about that a little bit?
The only reason why you're concerned right now, if you're a Heat fan, is because the Sixers and Bucks got more games to play. So where it says 3, Sixers can make up a game just by the 2 extra games they have left to play more than the Heat. So there's a game right there. You play each other, I believe, next week, So if obviously the Sixers are able to take that game, there's a game right there. So, I mean, this is still far from over. I'm sure they got to play the Bucks at least once or twice. I'll tell you what, he got a tough schedule coming up. I know they have the Suns here tomorrow night. That'll be a must-watch game for any NBA fans. And then, again, I think they have the Sixers next week, and I think they might play the Bulls or something over the weekend. But so he's going through a tough part of their schedule. If they're able to serve, or Cleveland, not the Bulls. If they're able, and then Minnesota is not no joke this year. And then so if
Phoenix, Cleveland, Minnesota all at home, then you get Detroit, Oklahoma City, kind of some easier games. Then at Philadelphia, Golden State, New York at home, Brooklyn at home, Sacramento, then at Boston, at Chicago, at Toronto, Charlotte, Atlanta.
So they actually don't have to play Milwaukee the rest of the year. So you survive that one, but. I mean, you'll find out. They're capable of winning their next 3, or that they're also capable of losing those next 3, depending on how they shake out. So you'll find out where the Heat stand here after these next. We'll throw the Sixers and Warriors in there. So next 6 games, I'll say this: next 6 games, if the Sixers or Bucks don't catch up to them, whether it's a tie or take over, I would say it's probably the Heat's to lose at that point.
All right, and then looking obviously Philadelphia and Milwaukee on the rise. There's a good chance they catch Miami, as we just pointed out here. But you have to look at the teams around them. Chicago only a game behind Milwaukee. Boston continuing to rise, another half game behind them. Are there any other movements we think that look like they're going to happen. Obviously, Chicago's lost 5 games in a row, kind of going through a rough stretch here. Any other movements you think they could be made, especially with how tight everything is right now?
Nothing crazy. I mean, if I'm going to predict it, I'm going to say the Celtics and Bulls swap. Not that that's really anything crazy. I think I know we talked about this before. We expected the Bulls and Cavs to kind of come back down to earth. I think you're starting to see that here late in the year. And I think this is where the Celtics will make their jump with how fast or how hot of basketball they're playing right now. I think Nets are going to get healthy a little bit. I think they have the potential to get up to 7, but they've kind of dug themselves too much there. I don't know if they're going to find a way to get out of that playing game. But
yeah, I don't see them getting out of the playing game unless they just don't lose a game for the rest of the year.
Exactly, and that's not going to happen.
No, just also I think you're still dealing with it. Is Kyrie still not able to play at home?
No.
Correct. He's allowed in the building now, but he can't play.
Yes. He's technically an employee, so he cannot play, but he can show up as a fan.
We
need to put Kyrie. He needs to storm the court. There's a fan on the court. Oh, he hit a 3. Oh, my goodness. Is that Kyrie Irving? No, it's me, Myrie Curving.
Well,
it's me, Uncle Drew.
Well, he can't play despite the fact literally everyone else around him is not good. It's just stupid.
Well,
anyways,
this is what happens when you think the Earth is flat.
I'm just kind of moving on.
This is your brain on flat Earth.
But I think eventually they're just gonna have to let Kyrie play. It's obviously Kyrie's not gonna budge, but. The best that can happen to them is they get to the 7th seed and win.
And that's what I was going to bring up. Do you want the 7th seed? Because if you're the 7, you're now home, and Kyrie can't play then if you get the 7th seed.
Here's why I want Brooklyn to get the 7th seed. Think about it. 7th seed Brooklyn, 2 seed Philadelphia. Think about that. Think about that matchup.
Well, that's all going to depend on how it
the
shakes
people's
out,
matchup. Ben Simmons back in Philadelphia.
Well, it's all going to come down to the playing game stuff, obviously. But
it will.
But here's the thing:
what you want to do is if you stay at 9, win. That's basically what you want.
Yeah. Well, and then here, if you get the 7th seed, Kyrie's out. So here's your starting point guard, it's Ben Simmons, and we all know he can't win the big game, so they're going to lose.
Yeah, you're in a pretty bad situation right now, regardless of where you're at.
So basically, Brooklyn's trying to play for the 8th seed.
Well, and here's my last point about the Nets. You think they'd want? I get it, but like, how is Simmons not on the court? Like, his first game with the Nets could very well be with like a game or 2 left in the regular season.
That's true.
And he might get thrown into that Nets team with not playing more than like 50 minutes together.
That's true.
And they're going to be a mess come playing time. Like, and I'm not. This is honestly taking all my negativity against Simmons away from it. I'm just talking about like purely the way the game of basketball works. Like, you need chemistry, especially in the NBA.
Yeah, when you have no on-court chemistry, it's going to build.
You better hurry up with those mental health issues, because I get mental health is a serious thing, but it's like your teammates are not going to really want to be around you or want you on the court if you have very little playing time, if even at all.
Well, now they're saying it's past that. Now they're saying he's not in quote-unquote game shape, whatever that means.
Yeah, so apparently mental health problems are fixed.
So literally he sat out that entire time in Philly and was not remotely ready to play.
That's what I'm getting out of it. I think at some point he must have thought, okay, I'm never leaving Philly.
I'm at the point where I don't think he really wants to play basketball.
Listen, I don't disagree. You're preaching to the choir at this point with me. But we'll see. I don't know when to predict his first game is at this point, but I'm just saying, like, it's incredible.
Play a game for the Guangdong Tigers. That's where we need to send him. Ni hao. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, folks. Send him to China. Let him be the face of the CBA. But moving to the West, Phoenix is just killing it. That is all you can say about the Suns at this point. No Chris Paul, no Devin Booker. They still show up and win games.
They're easily the best team in the NBA right now.
They are.
When you don't have your 2 main star players and all you have is your big guy as your star player, and you're still kicking butt, that just shows just how good your bench is.
Yeah,
how good your backups
are. Their bench is insane. I mean,
and they're not even paying, and that's not a lot of money going to some of those guys.
No, I mean, Cam Johnson has just become an amazing player. Him and Jay Crowder, those 2 forward spots that they're able to run, just absolutely insane what they're able to do. Just spot up, play good defense, shoot threes. Everything Phoenix needs to have on a championship winning team, they have. They have the bench. They have the starters. They have the glue guys. They have DeAndre Ayton, who's a phenomenal center, Devin Booker, who's one of the best scorers in the league, and Chris Paul, who is still an insanely good point guard. He can be 50 years old and still be an insanely good point guard.
Yeah, Cam Johnson's a lot of fun to watch. He's a guy at college I really liked, and everyone had him fall into like the 20s and stuff, and the Suns picked him at 12. And I remember everybody saying, "Oh, like that's
Why
a
would
way,
you do
yeah,
that? Yeah.
that's a bad pick, way too early." But no, Cam Johnson was one of the best shooters coming out of that draft, and he's just continues to prove it. And he's a lot of fun to watch, and he's honestly a lot like the guy or a guy on the next team we're going to talk about probably in the Grizzlies there at the 2 spot, and Desmond Bane. They're two guys that were kind of projected the same way, just great pure shooters like coming out of the draft, and they're just continuing to play well and helping both teams. And I get they have Chris Paul, but both teams are fairly young there. And again, Chris Paul kind of spikes that, but besides that, the core of that team is fairly young.
And then, the 2 spot you mentioned here, the Memphis Grizzlies, 8 games behind Phoenix, but it really doesn't matter. You've got Ja Morant. That's all you need to say about that.
Exactly. They're going. It's good. Man, the Grizzlies Suns would be a fun Western Conference Finals matchup.
It would.
Would I forget what the Heat's record is? Would the Grizzlies be the 1 in the East?
Grizzlies would be tied with
Tied for one.
Memphis
So
right
that's
now.
that's
Or
crazy.
Memphis would be tied with Miami. There we go.
The Grizzlies are tied with themselves.
That's true. They would be. They would be. Best of 7, they tie somehow.
Somehow.
They each win 3, and then they quit playing the 7th game and realize that the scrimmage is over. But moving on to 3 seed, the Warriors, who have been on a slump recently. 5 losses in a row. No Draymond Green right now holding the glue together. Klay Thompson not playing well right now, not looking like his old self. And Steph Curry still playing well, but he can't carry that team forever.
No.
And Andrew Wiggins is just kind of there.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins is starting to come back down to his first couple seasons, which I always liked Andrew Wiggins, so I hope he kind of turns it back around. But we'll see what happens. But I don't know, this Warriors team is weird, and that's the problem sometimes with being a shooting team is if you go through bad stretches, you're not going to win games.
No.
And they don't have the big like the Suns and Ayton to kind of survive that, or the Sixers with Embiid, where if you can't shoot, let's go inside. Like they don't have that big to do that and survive. So they're a team where you could see them out quicker than you'd expect, especially with if the Nuggets. I'm talking about playoff matchups right now. If it ended today, if the Nuggets got healthy at the right time.
Yeah, you could see that. If the Nuggets get a healthy Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray back, who knows what they're able to do.
Or even if, say, the Nuggets jump the Mavericks. I mean, if you have Luka on your team, they're if
No. Andrew.
Wait, no, what? I'm saying the Mavericks
I'm
could
just
upset
saying
the Warriors.
no. It should not happen.
Make it happen.
No.
Basketball gods. Do it.
No.
Do it. You'll make Cade mad.
I mean, at this point, I'm in a good mood with Dallas. We'll get to them in a moment, though. Moving on, 4-seeded Utah. Utah, just an insanely good defensive team. That's always what they're going to be. You got Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, that 1-2 punch there, offense, defense, whatever you need. Utah's going to deliver. They're always a solid team. They're, once again, right here in the 4 spot. And I think this is going to be the big battle here in the West, that 4, 5, and 6. Who is going to play who? You've got Utah at 4, half a game behind them is Dallas at 5, and then a game behind Dallas is Denver at 6. That is going to be an insane battle.
Yeah. And you got all of these teams really close together, but it really kind of depends on who do you want to play in that with where on position, because 4 and 5 that's usually the toughest of all the series.
And here's the thing: they've all proven they can beat each other.
Yeah.
They've all beaten each other, and I think most of the series are split.
And here's the thing: I will say the Dallas Mavericks have the edge over everybody, including, well, I guess the Warriors are pretty good at this too. But the thing the Mavericks have here, and I think I brought this up before, is their defense.
Yes.
And when that comes into a 7-game series, it's going to be that it's going to be special to have a defense like that. And that's where the Mavericks will have the edge on everybody else. And listen, I'm going to sit here and say, honestly, I was joking about the Mavs falling back to 6. Well, with the way the Warriors are struggling, they're right there to climb them up to that 3 spot. I don't know what they did head-to-head, so who would have the tiebreaker.
Mavs I believe, have the 3-1 lead over the Warriors. They won the series with
So they get the tie, so that's strictly a 3-game lead because they'd have the tiebreaker over them. So if the Warriors still fall or if continue to struggle, and you know better than I would, obviously, if the Mavericks if they played 4 times already, it's probably season series would be over.
Yeah.
But who knows I don't know what the Warriors schedule is, but 3 games they got 65, so 3 games with 15 left, or excuse me, 17 left. that it's going to be a tough stretch down there. And I would not be surprised to see Mavericks make up 3 games with how well they're playing, especially with that defense.
Yeah, you look at the Warriors here. They get the Clippers tonight. They get Denver Thursday night.
They'll lose to
on the
Denver.
road. You get Milwaukee Saturday. You've got Washington Monday. You've got Boston Wednesday. Then San Antonio Sunday. Then your road trip at Orlando, at Miami, at Atlanta, at Washington, at Memphis. And then Phoenix at home to end March. Utah at home, at Sacramento. Lakers at home. And then you end the year at San Antonio, at New Orleans.
Not to get slightly off. Not trying. Sorry, this is a little off top of it. It's like I always forget. Like as much as I've complained about how long the NBA season is, I always forget sometimes it just goes by quicker than you think.
It does with 82 games. It is a lot, but time flies.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the Warriors' schedule. They could lose the next 3 games, and it wouldn't surprise me. You know, you take one big game from Reggie Jackson again. The Nuggets and Bucks, we know what they can do to teams.
Yeah, they'll survive the Wizards, but then you get one of the hottest, if not the hottest team in the NBA right now in the Celtics. So they got a tough stretch here down the rest of the way. So, again.
They could easily draw with the way things are going if they can't get it together shooting-wise or any other aspect. You could easily see them drop to the 5 or 6.
I mean, you easily
with
could.
everyone else just moving up.
I absolutely agree.
I mean, that is a real possibility. And that's something the Warriors fans have got to be, I think, a little bit concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, especially, who knows? I mean, obviously it's always good to get a guy back, but you don't know how healthy he really is until he's back on the floor. So Green might play not even 100%, and that just him not playing at his top caliber self could cause them to lose some games. And, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Again, especially with Denver starting to get healthy. They're 9 of the last 10. They're a team to look out for. It's good. I'll tell you what, this is the most fun the NBA has been in a very long time. Like, it's, for once, not just, okay, the Warriors are going to go play LeBron.
Yeah, it's not the Warriors are going to play the Cavs.
This is, like, legitimately wide open for anybody to win.
This is the kind of NBA you like when you have really many teams that are really good.
No, exactly.
Instead of just it being, like, just 2 teams. That's it. Like,
unless it's my team, in which case then the NBA is good. That's always how that works.
Well, that'll never happen, so.
Hey, it did happen. They just never could do anything.
Hey, you've seen more titles than I have in the NBA.
That is true. My one title. I will respect it very much.
I still have yet to see one for OKC, despite the fact they had multiple different opportunities after the first time to try to get there. Instead, they disappoint me every time.
You got a certified 3-1 blown lead that no one talks about.
It's because everyone wants to talk about.
Everyone wants to talk about the other 3-1 lead. So you got lucky on that. You got one hate Kevin Durant pass though. That's where you got his compensation.
And it doesn't help that a lot of us do think that he probably did blow that series on purpose. Though it's like you're at 3-1. I'm not really. I think just Kevin Durant played much. The fact when you play worse than Westbrook, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking about games on purpose, we completely forgot to talk about one of the biggest NFL cases.
Oh yeah, we did.
Let's finish the NBA and then we'll do the quick dive into
we'll
that.
get back to that. That is kind of a funnier one to get at. But moving along here, Denver at 6 is going to be just an insane team to look out for. They get healthy, they can be a pretty fun team. Moving to the 7 through 10 is really odd to see just in terms of names. You got Minnesota at 7, the Clippers at 8, the Lakers at 9, and then New Orleans at 10. That is just weird to think about.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for somehow Portland to get up there and pass the Pelicans. I don't know.
How about they pass the Lakers and the Pelicans also pass the Lakers?
I'm a LeBron fan, so I'm not going to hope for that.
That's a more fun scenario. Screw LeBron.
This is going to be an interesting time though, because we mentioned with the Lakers, this is a team we've talked about a lot. Obviously, the 9 seed. I mean, who doesn't love talking about the Lakers at this point? You either love them or you hate them. That's just how they are.
You just love to hate them.
Yeah, or you just love to hate them. You look at their remaining schedule. You've got at Houston, Washington, but then you got Phoenix, Toronto, Minnesota, Toronto again.
Basically,
that's going to be a rough 4-game stretch for them.
The whole thing for them is they need LeBron obviously to play at the level he, for the most part, has been playing very consistently well through most of the year. But you gotta hope everybody else can at least do something because he can have a great game and they'll still get beat by 10 or 20.
I mean, that's just the problem that the team that the GM built. And, I mean,
Well,
no one could
LeBron's
predict.
also the reason why some of these players are where they're at.
Yes and no. That's overblown. No one could predict how bad Westbrook is. Like that. That's just Russell Westbrook. I mean, if
Everyone saw, let's be real, we all saw that from a country mile that he wouldn't be playing that great.
nobody saw Russell Westbrook shooting this bad, and I mean he's really destroyed this team. I mean, I get it. He was never a really good 3-point shooter, but his overall shooting and overall game has diminished a ton. Defensively, offensively,
it's gotten to the point where it's like just even simple reads
Yeah,
on passes at times.
again, yeah, a lot of people predicted him not to shoot well, but I mean everybody could have predicted that. But his whole game has suffered. Nobody expected his whole game to suffer like this. Like you would have thought his assist numbers would have gone up. You would have thought his defense was still going to be there. But
it doesn't help when Anthony Davis gets injured again.
Watching through his entire time through in the last years with the Thunder and all that, you could tell that at some point his game was going to diminish at some point.
Yeah, but the whole point is it was like a time bomb. You didn't know when it was going to happen, but you knew at some point it was going to happen.
I feel like I'm the only one here who was not surprised by this.
I wasn't 100%. I thought it could happen. I just didn't think it would happen immediately.
The way you guys are talking, you guys are like just blown away how bad it was. It's like it was getting to the point where it wasn't that great with the Wizards either.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't amazing with the Wizards, but I thought he would have had a slightly easier time, considering usually in big threes, you score less, but your stats go up in terms of like percentages and assists and things like that. But the exact opposite has happened. And that kind of shocked me, but then you see how the Lakers team's built and you watch them for a few games, and it's like, okay, I can see why that happened.
Oh, what's going on with Anthony Davis? Is he hurt again?
Yes, he's hurt.
he hasn't played in a while.
I've seen nothing, so I just assumed he just hasn't been doing anything.
They're hoping to get him back soon, but I think at this point it might be wishful thinking.
Because if he comes back, obviously the load's no longer on LeBron's shoulders, and you can actually get more stuff going. But if he's gone, I wouldn't be surprised if I see Lakers miss the playoffs altogether.
I would not be surprised either. I mean, kind of going through some of the other games here. Cleveland, Philadelphia, at New Orleans, at Dallas, at Utah, New Orleans again, Denver at home, at Phoenix, at Golden State, Oklahoma City, Denver. You have 2 games I think you can call that they're going to win, if you can even call those, in Houston and Oklahoma City. Every other game, including Washington, which is a winnable game, with Porzingis back, that's going to be a fight, especially without Anthony Davis, depending on how bad Westbrook plays and depending on if LeBron can carry the team hard enough. I mean, we saw him do it against Golden State. He had 56. He had one of the best performances he's had in a long time.
Really good
And when Carmelo Anthony is your second best player, that is usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
Old Carmelo Anthony.
Old Carmelo Anthony.
What I don't get is, and obviously he's put a lot of minutes into the NBA, but you're fighting, and I don't know, but I don't get how they rest LeBron last night. In that San Antonio game, because that's a winnable game. If you want to rest him against the Suns in Phoenix, it's like, okay, even if LeBron plays, you're probably that outmatched. But that game, not even on a back-to-back in San Antonio, that's one you got to find a way to go out and win. Like I couldn't believe they gave him one of those, whatever they call it, load management nights. Because that's one you got to go out and steal that one on the road because of where you're at this season. Because if you survive and you get Anthony Davis back, I know things haven't gone well, but if you have Anthony Davis and LeBron on the floor, you're capable of winning any series.
Yes. It is going to be intriguing, and let's talk about the other LA team too, at least for a little bit. Give the Clippers some love, I guess.
They deserve it.
They deserve it. Reggie Jackson is indeed that guy. No Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard. Reggie Jackson goes out there, pretty much dominates Russell Westbrook in a game, which, I mean, you can kind of expect this year, but it's still weird to see him crossing him up and pretty much owning him, I guess is the best way to say it. But Reggie Jackson playing well, Clippers in the 8th spot, and then the Pelicans, that C.J. McCollum Pelicans team, apparently with Zion, he might be back. If that happens, and if Zion is healthy and they get some chemistry going here in the next few weeks, which are all big ifs, they could be a team that contends for that 7-8 spot.
Zion better be careful. He's starting to get into Ben Simmons territory with – he's going to grow that organization to be frustrated and stuff if he doesn't. Like, the fact that he hasn't played a game this year is just mind-boggling to me. Like, I get he came in I forget how many pounds exactly overweight or whatever they call it, but
Decent amount.
I mean, to do that,
Enough
not being ready to play, and then you're still not like I don't know what's going on with him, and I don't know. I mean, at this point, when you're the 10th seed, you might as well just let him sit out the rest of the year and come back fully next year. But like he better be careful, or else he's gonna get into. You're gonna get your teammates upset. You're gonna get the coaches upset. You're gonna get the fan base upset. So I mean, he's got to be careful. And there was the whole debacle there with not reaching out to CJ or CJ not reaching out to him and already having communication issues. So as good as that Pelicans team is going to start to shape up, you got to be careful because it could go the other way too.
I mean, it very well could. Then you look at Portland, Damian Lillard trying to will this team into the playoffs. He's trying so hard.
I hope so. Portland's one of those teams you just want to see do well because of Damian. Like if he would have got traded or he goes elsewhere, it's like okay, I don't really care anymore what this team does. But just for Damian, I want to see this team find a way to get in.
Yeah. Then San Antonio and Sacramento, both half a game behind Portland, they can still make the playoffs. It's still weird to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, despite the fact that the Kings have been kind of in a slump here, winning 3 of their last 10, same as Indiana, who they made that trade with. Which is kind of an interesting stat if you think about it. Both teams going 3-7 since the trade.
It's true.
And then Oklahoma City, they're 7 games out. They're technically still in the race. There's still hope for team don't tank.
Oh, my God.
Which is one of the funnier things, SGA, he could carry them to the playoffs. It would take a lot of luck.
The thing is you have a couple other guys on that team that can actually play well. The problem is the team just cannot, as a unit, do something.
Yeah,
or they lose too many close games.
Yeah, that's with being a young team. You still have trouble closing out, and you're still trying to find your footing.
But obviously for them, they still got a lot of draft picks they can work with. I mean, you're also guaranteed a lottery spot if you just kind of just don't keep winning. But with the team that you've assembled, especially you have some really good players. Well, even though some of them still have room to grow. Obviously, SGA just being really good already, but you still have rookies that you drafted that are playing some good ball, but obviously only like one of them has mainly been a standout.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's like, got some room to grow, but obviously you don't really want to tank, but also, well, you could get a guaranteed lottery pick, which means you could get one of the better players in the draft.
Yeah. And then finally you have Houston. I have nothing to say about them. They're just tanking. That's about all that can be said.
Trash.
Jalen,
Well,
they got. I liked their pick last year in Green, and then we'll see what they're able to get from this year's draft. It's going to be interesting to see. I will say, my final take on the NBA is this point next week. We could be talking about. We should be. I don't know how many games they got to next week, but we're gonna have a new coach wins leader. Greg Popovich tied the
that is true.
most NBA wins as a coach in his career, and hopefully he's able to pick up that one more by next week. I'd assume so. Obviously, we'll see what he's got coming up this week. But at this point next week, we could be talking about some history.
Yes, as we look, I mean, you get Toronto at home this week. Maybe you can pull that one off. That is a winnable game.
And
if
they got
not, then you have another
Pacers.
shot against Indiana. That will probably be the game they do it. If they do it, it'll be that game.
Yeah, they also got Utah at home. So they got 3 home games in a row, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So we'll see. I mean,
you 3 chances this week at
you
home.
expect them to win 1 at home. But.
Yeah, I would think so, especially trying to stay alive in that playoff hunt. But we have that other NFL story to get to because it is such a bizarre story just in general. And it's so bizarre that ESPN is not even covering it today because, I mean, what do you even say?
And why is there so much that happened today?
Yeah,
too?
I mean, that too.
But,
there we go. It took a while to get down to it, but Calvin Ridley, his time with Atlanta, more than likely over because of a suspension all over a $1,500 bet. That's why you don't use DraftKings, folks. Even though they're sponsored the NFL, gambling is still bad and sports betting is bad, and you should not do it if you're a player, even though you were injured and, had no team intel on anything.
And it's just crazy. We want many different things in this whole thing. One, yeah, like you said, don't do it if you're a player. Number one. 2, why? Even if you wanted to do it, why are you doing it in your own name? Like
come up with a fake name at least.
Well, not only that, there's way you could just call up
Or
call
a
your
friend.
best friend and be
That's
like,
true.
do this. Or call, I don't know what his relationship status is, but if he's married, get your wife to do it.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know if he has siblings, get a sibling to do it. There's plenty of ways. One. Two, again, like you said, when you're injured, just be smarter. Three, I mean, look at the Pete Rose stuff. I mean, it's keeping him out of the Hall of Fame.
Even though that's pretty stupid at this point.
Yes and no. I get why people are frustrated, but he still might have cheated the game in some standpoint if that was happening.
Gambling, okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're gambling, you're throwing games. If you're gambling, possibly if you're picking your team to lose.
Okay, okay, whatever.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I get both sides of it. I get where people are coming from on both ends of it.
Well, but didn't he do that stuff as a manager rather than a player?
He mainly did it as a manager, but it was both. And then they were thinking about reinstating him. Then all that other stuff came out, which solidified him not getting in. All the sexual assault stuff and all that. So
yeah, that's.
So that was the final piece, because like the Reds were gonna honor him at the All-Star game, and then they were gonna put him in their quote unquote the Reds Hall of Fame and stuff, and then all that stuff came out, and I was like, okay,
no thanks.
You're done.
Nope.
You're done. So that was the last straw.
As a player, he was one of the best to play, but obviously that would have been the only reason to put it, to put him in. Is just don't base it on what he mainly did afterwards. But you can't put him in.
No,
that stuff.
He's arguably the greatest hitter of all time, and that's what's a shame. And now I'm going on a whole another rant, but
we'll get to baseball in a little bit.
You're gonna have your greatest hitter or hits leader not in the Hall of Fame, your home run leader not in the Hall of Fame, your strikeout leader not in the Hall of Fame. It's just crazy. Like, what is the Baseball Hall of Fame at this point? But no, like Calvin Ridley is in a situation now. Like, but here's the thing. Like, at least like his thing. I mean, obviously what he did is wrong, but like in a year from now, when I think he's gonna hit free agency, like it's not like you're taking a risk on anything that bad. Like, at least it's his own thing. He didn't technically. I mean, he broke the rule, like the league's rules, but like he didn't break any laws or anything here. So
he'll be able to find himself.
Yeah, he'll find a spot. I think what's crazy about the NFL here is, and I'm sure you guys seen it too, but like the degree of their suspensions. Like, this guy got suspended a full season for betting on games, while you got the Ray Rice situation. He got a total of 2 games. You had
the NFL doesn't.
The NFL spins a wheel.
No.
Yeah.
Gambling, you can't. That is forbidden. How dare you do that? Hitting your wife. It's only 2 games.
That is acceptable for some reason.
Well,
the NFL is fine with domestic abuse.
Well, and even if you want, like obviously that's bad, but too. But even like
it's bad.
Steroids, like even just like cheating the game in that sense, that you get 2 to 4 games for that too. It's like what he did again is wrong and against the league rules, but what he did compared to those suspensions we just talked about is the least worrisome out of those things.
That is true. And then, I guess moving on from one suspension to another, moving over to baseball, which is technically suspended if you think about it. That's one way of putting it with the lockout.
Technically.
Everything I've seen negotiation-wise, talks still progressing as of an hour ago tonight. We have no clue what is happening. There's increasing optimism that a deal will be done tonight and they will play a 162-game season. The owners are willing to walk that back, but they're also willing to cancel another week if talks don't get done today. So we have no idea what is going to happen there. We could have 162, we could have 155 to 157, we could have 154 to 151. It all depends on, can they get a deal done tonight? The MLB still wants a 14-team postseason. The players are saying no, make it 12 at the maximum. So that is one of the main things. I saw where the pitch clock is potentially a thing that could get implemented with 15 seconds.
Ooh, that's going to ruin a lot of
bigger bases is apparently on the table.
Wait, what?
Having actual bigger bases.
Bigger
the
bases.
Size of the base itself being bigger.
I don't have an issue with that.
I mean, it'll be fascinating, I guess is the best way to put it. There are a lot of rule changes that both sides continue to debate about, as well as, of course, all the money, which is, of course, the main concern here. So
I think on
the main thing is,
well, I think on certain money issues, that stuff will get resolved. They'll come to crap. I don't know why I'm blanking on what it like. they'll come to a deal on it. Basically, they'll figure that stuff out. Compromise with the money, because eventually the MLB owners are going to have to break, because the association has basically been like, we're not putting our. It's like we literally it's our battle. It's like we have nothing to lose here at this point.
Yeah.
Because the owners are like, oh, like crap. Now we're going to have to do this.
Also, another thing that came out earlier today. I don't know if either of you two saw it, but Apple TV is officially going to be broadcasting one game every single Friday for the MLB. So that is another streaming partner deal for baseball.
I still think they should have been doing college baseball games to replace, but can't do that.
They're trying to. I will give that. I'll give them credit on two things. Obviously, because if you listen to the show and heard me complain about the league and everything, there's two things I'll give them credit on a little bit. One, they are starting to stream more baseball games or college games. I saw on MLB Network there was a bunch over the weekend.
Nice.
The problem is there's so many blackout restrictions, which was annoying. Like I tried to put on Oklahoma, UCLA, but I wasn't able to watch it because it was quote unquote blacked out.
Yes, because of Oklahoma, Texas, and LSU all being there, the games were blacked out in Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. So you had to watch it through the Astros official broadcast, or just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
They were live streaming it for free on the Houston Astros YouTube
Well,
channel.
that's fine. I'm just saying, like, I was trying to give them, like, they're trying to show, but then there's still these restrictions, which is a little annoying.
I understand what you're getting at here.
And then the other thing I will give them major, major props to, and this is both the league and the MLB, the Players Association, is they finally have taken into account the stadium workers that will not be working because of the lockout. And I think they came together with I think it was a $2 million agreement as of right now to help pay for a lot of those workers. So I was actually extremely happy to see that at least.
At least they're going to get some money.
So that was good to see. Those are the two things I will give them credit on. Unfortunately, I don't think a deal is going to be made today. I'd be surprised.
I don't think it will be either.
And
so there's a possibility. This was as of 4:35 from Evan Drellich, who it's wait-and-see mode. MLB and the MLBPA have spoken by phone since their last in-person meeting. Reporters still gathered. There's at least the possibility that it is a late night.
And here's my issue with that. We went through this late night last week when the original deadline was there, and we got nothing because the MLB group smartly planned where, okay, let's make it look like we're really working and make the players look bad, and then we'll extend the deadline to make it look like we're trying, even though we know the deal's not going to get done. So it makes the players look worse. And like you said, I don't know if the MLB is aware, but we have a thing called Media Today with a bunch of reporters who will see right through that and tell us the truth of what's going on.
And then an hour ago, Bob Nightingale talks still progressing. Key issues remain fluid. It appears as if it could be an awfully long night of negotiations.
Yeah, it's like, but the owners, I know the owners were trying everything they could to kind of get the public to side with them, but it's like, we can see right through you. It was pretty blatant. I mean, the Players Association, I mean, despite the issues you could have with them in regards to certain other aspects, but it's like, they at least said we're open and clear about everything. The MLB has been like, well, they're basically kind of just not really been clear on everything, and they kind of just were trying to make the players look bad so the people would turn against them, and then eventually players would just the association would just give in.
No,
but it's like that did not work at all.
Exactly. And I think, and my issue too is at this point, I think both sides eventually are not going to do what's right for the game. I think they're eventually going to cave, and it's going to make the game work. And that's the problem. The MLB's trying to, rather than keeping the diehard fans and the fans they have now, they're trying to make it worse and approach some. They think they're going to gain other people, but I don't know. Are you guys hardcore baseball watchers? I don't know. It's my favorite sport, so I am, and I don't know if either you are.
I love baseball, but obviously for me, I don't really start intently watching until near the halfway point because there's already so many games. Plus, not everything is settled out. Plus, also for my team, it's kind of like, well, not really doing much, so I can't really. It's hard to get invested when your team's not doing that's good.
I usually try to watch the Cardinals, but the fact is I can never watch them because with the TV restrictions. Here, let me go into strict detail. The Cardinals are supposed to be available in Oklahoma. However, the only way you can watch them is if you have Bally Sports Midwest, which DirecTV does not offer to us here in Oklahoma. So the only way I'm supposed to watch them on a network I'm supposed to get is if I pay $200 a month for this one channel to watch the Cardinals that it'll still try to black me out of, despite the fact I'm not blacked out of them.
That sucks to be because I get the Royals.
That's the thing. But the Royals, who are also in Oklahoma market, they don't do that for. But they do it for St. Louis for some reason.
Yeah, that's just the one that's where it's like.
But if I go on my computer, it'll let me watch the Cardinals because it registers them as Bally Sports Oklahoma.
And this is perfect because these are the points I want to prove, and I wish I could find a way to tell the league. And instead of finding ways to make it easier for fans to watch, because I get it, some people hate some of the rules, but a lot of people who actually want to watch the game can't because of all these blackout restrictions. And I'm someone, I pay for MLB TV every year. And I get it. It's because of the TV rights and everything. And again, I try to watch a lot of games, but the Royals, the Astros, the Cardinals, the Rangers, and one more team, I'm blanking on who it is, are all blacked out. Oh, Chicago. Those places are nowhere near where we are right now. Like, they are all at least over 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's because the TVs come over and stuff, but they shouldn't be blacked out is my point. Like, if you want to get attention to and then here, congratulations, you got an Apple TV deal, but so you're going to charge fans, like, your games are already hard to watch as it is. So now Friday, when you're supposed to have your big, like, weekend game where fans can watch, you're going to have them have to pay some Apple deal here to watch the game. Yeah. And again, it's a step backwards. Like, I feel like everything baseball does is a step backwards.
Thank you, Rob Manfred.
No, exactly. And here's my thing too. So as fans who, like you said, you wait till a little bit in the middle of the season, is adding a 20-second pitch clock going to get you to watch more games? Is banning the shift going to get you to watch more games?
Well, what will get me to watch more games is if I can have the ability to watch the games.
Thank you.
It's like for me, it's like because I can watch, because it's like, well, I say I don't really watch. I do still watch a fair amount early in the season, but a lot of time, yeah, I'm not paying as much attention. Maybe it's because the Royals just are not playing as well as I would like them to, but understandable, they're dealing with a lot of rebuild stuff. But it's like, but when I was younger, when they were good, I watched them a lot. But it was like, but obviously the issues that, obviously the difference with especially with Cade is he can't really watch the Cardinals even if he'd like to. While as me, I can watch the Royals anytime for the most part because just the deal they made with Bally Sports.
No, and exactly, and that's what I think the league isn't realizing is you can make it better and grow your game without changing all these rules. And I like the shift. It's a way. It's a strategy in a strategy game. It's a strategy way to play defense. That'd be like telling an NFL team you can't play a 2-safety defense here because the quarterback can't throw deep. I think it was Will Middlebrooks, a former baseball player, that tweeted that out. And if you want some of the points, go look at him and Trevor Bauer. They're both very active on Twitter, and they made some good points on it. Like, and it'll be like the NBA. You can't play 2-3 defense here because this team that would struggle. Like, and I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy for hitters to learn to hit the other way. Obviously, they've been playing the game longer than I have, but that's part of the game. Like, as a defense, you're trying to find ways to stop that team, and if that's the way, you're giving up an entire side of the field. Like, you're still setting up a disadvantage for yourself by saying, okay, we'll put 5 guys on this side. All you got to do is bunt the ball over to the left side.
What has really been the big problem that people had with the shift? Because it's like the issue, like you said, it's for you're only moving guys over there because the batter.
Here's the thing you don't understand: it takes 6 seconds for them to walk. That's 6 seconds we could put an ad in. We need another T-Mobile ad, Andrew and Connor.
I think it was Will Middlebrooks that tweeted that. I don't know if you saw that. He's like, if them will be so worried about
they've got to sponsor the 7th inning stretch again.
If them will be so worried about the pace of the game, why don't they take away the 40 seconds of your 3-minute commercial breaks?
Here's the thing I love about soccer.
No, and because money ads matter more than actual baseball.
This is the thing I will always give credit to soccer for. They do not do ad breaks. You will see a split screen, which you can do perfectly in baseball. There's enough time for you to do a split screen ad between every single pitch if you really wanted to.
You can literally just do 10-second ads.
Don't give them that idea.
Listen, if you do that but eliminate all the other 3-minute ad breaks, it'll kind of balance out. Not really. I don't know.
Like the only time you like I say you do obviously you do your 3-minute ad break is when it's in between innings or at the end of an inning. But don't do anything during the game. Like let it just roll through.
Like even if you did like the little picture-in-picture where you have like a little tiny ad that scrolls across even the top of the screen or something like that.
Like there are better.
That saves 30 seconds right there. That's how you get your ad across and save time,
and also
which is helpful for both sides.
And also you don't have to slow down the game waiting for the TV to come back on, for the ad breaks to end.
Yep.
Everyone loves Mr. Red Hat. He's everyone's favorite guy.
Because like obviously with high school baseball, you deal with no commercials whatsoever. But it's not like it gets quick. Like you can get through, like you exchange innings or whatever, change in and out. It's like it at least takes about at most maybe a minute and a half, and then you're off and ready to go. It should not take about 3 minutes just to get back to the game.
Yeah, so leave the game alone. That's my moral of the story. Just leave the game alone. Worry about the other stuff. Go back to the old style, especially if you have the 3-batter minimum, which is not a good idea either. Like, please, there's no way. Like, that's what they don't realize is like, and it's at this point, whatever. We'll see what happens. I just want the game back. But the other thing that's crazy too about the PA is, I was talking about this with somebody. How do you? Last week you're like, okay, we're canceling the first 2 weeks of the season, and then this week they're like, oh, if we come together with a deal today, we'll add those games back. Like, you got to make up your mind. Like, they're just creating their own rules at this point to make the players look bad.
You have to, Andrew, you have to remember, the MLB is out of touch. They don't know what the players nor do what the fans want.
Sir, this is a Rob Manfred blasphemy. It's just a piece of metal, guys. It's just a piece of metal.
And every baseball fan wanted to punch him when he said that.
You know what else is a piece of metal? The trash can the Astros used. We don't see them ever talking about that. That's all I'm saying with that. But speaking of another valuable piece of metal, the Stanley Cup. It's pretty cool. I like it. Let's talk about hockey instead. You know, unfortunately we don't have baseball, but we do have hockey, and they use something like a bat. They use a stick. That's close enough.
Both would.
Could you imagine that if baseball players had to use hockey sticks? That'd be a pretty fun
That'd
sport.
be hilarious.
Those sticks would break every pitch.
They would. Pitchers would be unstoppable. It'd be a return to tradition. 1-0 game. But moving on here, the Eastern Conference continues to be just so exciting to watch. There's so much talent in the East in the NHL. Moving through the Atlantic Division, the top three right now, Florida with 81 points, Tampa Bay with 80, and Toronto with 76. This is highly contested with two Florida teams. This is the best I've ever seen the Panthers. Honestly, this is the best they've been in my lifetime. They're such a fun team to watch.
No, absolutely. And like you said, two teams down there in the same state makes that a fun rivalry as well, especially at the top here, fighting for that number one spot in the conference. I mean, the Carolinas in front of them right now, but they're right there within reaching distance. And I think one thing is they expected – this is the team they expected last year that never really got going following the COVID year. Now they're really starting to put everything together. They're one of the better defensive teams as well. So this is a team that's clicking, and they'll be a fun team. I really like this Panthers team. Like you said, this is probably the best team in a long time, if not the best of our lifetime.
Easily. It's one of the better Panthers teams. I remember growing up, Panthers were terrible.
Yeah. The Panthers were a joke like the Atlanta Thrashers were.
It was like 5 years ago. They were one of the bottom teams, and all of a sudden, over time, they've slowly made their way up the ladder. And then last couple of years, they were obviously besides the COVID year where it kind of fell apart. It was like they were right there, getting a top seed, or at least near it, because obviously you still had to deal with Tampa being much better than you at the time, but. This is the Panthers team that obviously Panthers fans were glad to have now, because it's like, hey, we're actually good at hockey.
I know it is incredible.
It's incredible.
I mean, this is the year of the Southeast. We'll get to Carolina a little bit, but Tampa Bay, obviously a extremely stout defense, only giving up 155 goals. I mean, they have a great goal differential as well. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Lightning, the two-time defending champs. You can never count them out of anything, and what a shocker, they're playing well again.
Yeah, obviously for many, like for some of us, obviously, and they had the COVID year where they kind of had to separate, and obviously they won the COVID title.
They won the COVID Cup.
But many of us were like kind of hoping like, oh, if they lose, we can make fun of them for saying that their COVID Cup didn't matter. it doesn't mean much. But then
doesn't mean doesn't mean you still can't post Blue Jackets memes. Never forget. Never forget. It was the funniest series.
But obviously, it's just weird. It's like I know we'll get to the other teams in a bit. It's like out of all the teams in top 3 in each of the divisions, Toronto is by far the worst. Like points wise, by far the worst. Is like the worst of all.
They're by far the worst in the East with 76 points.
Yeah, and that's still really good. Like that's really good. Like compared to but obviously, and compared to how good the East is, like overall they're not really that great. But it's like versus everyone else. But it's like they're still really good compared to a lot of the other NHL teams.
Yeah, I mean Toronto with 76 points is still a threat. But looking at the Metropolitan. Carolina with 83 points. This is a team that, I mean, they're not the most amazing offense. They're still great on offense, obviously, but their defense is even more stout. They've only given up 134 goals. That is insane to think about. That is just a fun defense to watch. They will lock you down.
That is easily by far the lowest amount.
It's the lowest in the East for sure, tied with Calgary down there, who also has an amazing defense. So this is going to be a matchup to see. Carolina doing really well, and then you have the Rangers and Pens both tied for the 2 spot there. Rangers have the tiebreaker right now. So fun times in the Metro.
Yeah, I think Carolina is one of the most surprising teams of the year. And then number 2, just the way the Metropolitan shaped up was kind of surprising as well. I mean, right now not having the Caps in there in the top 3, they're fighting for a wild card spot. I mean, it's been a kind of a weird year there for the Metro, I think.
Yeah, then Boston in the wild card 1 and Washington in the second wild card spot.
Columbus we just vibing.
Yeah, I'll say there's no one really going to catch him for a few games as Columbus has 59 points. That's a 10-point gap, which roughly is about 5 games.
I mean, when you have obviously Capitals are 30, 18 and 9 while as Columbus is 28, 26 and 3, which obviously Capitals have a large overall a big deficit. Basically, Capitals will have to collapse in order for the Jackets to catch them. Yeah, but otherwise, it's like I don't really see any of these spots changing besides already probably right up in there that are pretty much going to qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah, and then you look below Columbus, you have Detroit with 54, the New York Islanders with 50, and the New Jersey Devils with 45, and they're all just treading water. They're all 4-4-2, 5-5, 4-6. None of them really going anywhere.
No.
And when you go nowhere fast in the NHL, you're going to get passed immediately. But there's no one really to pass them, though. There's no one to pass them, and there's no one for them to pass. So they're all in a weird spot. Then you have Philadelphia with 44, Buffalo with 44, Ottawa with 43, and Montreal catching fire as of late. 7 of their last 10. The Canadians are trying to not be last in the East. That's pretty much their goal at this point.
I mean, at this point, you're out of the playoffs, might as well be last so we get a better draft pick.
I mean, they got to keep tradition of Ottawa and Buffalo in the basement, though. They got to keep tradition. And moving over to the Western Conference, Colorado continues to be the team to beat. 87 points, just killer on offense. 227 goals. My goodness.
They're just, what was there to say about Colorado that there hasn't been said already of just how good they are?
Yeah, the only thing that can be said is they're good. They're extremely good. Oh, no, they're good.
They're good.
I think they're the only team at 40 wins at this point, and I mean they're 16. They're 16
yeah,
points.
I would say Carolina's at 39.
They're
so.
16 points above the next team in their division. That's just insane. And this Colorado team, I mean, I'd expect it's probably going to be them and Calgary out there in the West fighting for that spot there in the Stanley Cup Finals.
More than likely, but you look at St. Louis, you look at Minnesota, they're both just kind of vibing. They're just kind of existing. St. Louis kind of not in the best situation. You had this big road trip in New York. You haven't been able to win those games. Losing to the Islanders and Devils is pretty sad, not going to lie.
I was actually going to, say, I'm like, as great as like all that is with Colorado, I'm like, remember the NHL playoffs do not care how good you did in the regular season. No. You will get beat in the first round if the NHL gods demand it.
Well, there's something about St. Louis. They always find a way in the playoffs. Like they find a way to make a run, I feel like, every year.
It's fun. It is fun until the inevitable loss, and then
for you, kid, being a Blues fan.
It is. It will. I every once in a while will go back and watch that 2019 run and smile. That's about all I could do. Is to be like, man, I hope we can do that again. I don't know if they ever will. And
It's weird for me. I haven't been a hockey fan as long, and obviously me rooting for the Capitals. I've already joined everybody else. I'm like, why we're so much better than what we're playing, but yet why?
Welcome to being a Capitals fan.
why do I choose teams that always disappoint me?
Welcome to being a Capitals fan. Or Washington sports fan in general.
Well, at least the Capitals can actually win.
That is true. But moving here to the 3-spot, Minnesota Wild, they have been struggling as of late, only winning 2 of their last 10. Ooh. They're getting in on a streak, and this is not the time to do that. You look at that wild card, Dallas with 67 points, Nashville with 66. Here comes everybody catching up to Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And then looking to the Pacific, how about the Flames just kind of rolling over both the Golden Knights and the Kings to take that number 1 spot in the Pacific?
I'll say it's pretty odd that Vegas is not number 1.
It is, but they've been having their own rough stretches of late, 4-5-1 in their last 10. The Kings with 71 points, they're the 2 spot in the Pacific, and Vegas with only 68. This could be the first time we don't see Vegas make the playoffs.
Well, they're currently losing the Flyers, so that says it all right there.
That does say a lot.
Yeah, that says a lot.
That says a lot. And then wild cards, we mentioned Dallas, Nashville. But 2 points out of those wild cards, Edmonton sits there waiting to strike with 64, Anaheim 63, Vancouver 62. So the wild card in the West is a lot tighter.
Yeah. And it's going to be fun here down the stretch, too. I'm interested to see who makes it. Edmonton's a team. They got the pieces. It's a matter of, for whatever reason, it hasn't been clicking this year. And we'll see what's able to do. And I don't know. It's really weird. Like, how about, and I don't know when exactly it is, but the trade deadline here is late.
Yeah, the trade deadline is still coming up.
Yeah, these teams still have a chance to make some moves, and everybody's got a chance to get better and everything. So we'll see the way it shakes out. But, like, we're already 2 weeks into March, and the deadline hasn't even happened yet.
I can already say my team won't really be able to make any moves, so pretty much you got to go with what you got.
The Blues will say they will make a move, and
they
then
won't.
don't.
They won't.
Every year, they're linked to this guy, and then the other team mentioned in the article, trades for, was like, but the Blues were second, though. And I was like, cool, thanks.
It's like, with everything you've told me about the Blues, it's like, that's not
welcome to Blues hockey. We do nothing
like,
except sometimes win. And then when we do, it's like, hey, that's cool. Oh, no, it's Chicago. Uh-oh. That's bad. That's bad. Except for this year. They're in the cellar, which is goodbye me. And then Winnipeg with 58 points, San Jose with 55, Chicago 48, Seattle 39, and Arizona 36. Arizona has been playing somewhat better as of late. I watched their win over Colorado. Arizona's beaten Colorado twice. Arizona has 16 wins.
Bro.
2 of their wins are against the number 1 team in the NHL. I finally got to. Also, I do want to mention.
Is fun.
I do want to mention about Arizona's broadcast. Shout out to Bally Sports Arizona. Their color correction is so terrible. Let me pull a picture up if I actually can, since we have the ability. The rink is blue. It is not white.
Well, it also I don't think are they even in their original stadium they were?
They still are. This is their final year there. Okay. Valley Sports Arizona.
Yeah, there's something wrong if it's blue.
Hockey. Let me see if I can pull it up, because I know people have mentioned it before. If I can pull up a good image of it real quick. Yes, here we go. Look at this. That's not a hockey rink. What is up with your color correction?
It's like there's something wrong with the camera.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Well, I say pull it up here, but does not want to work for some reason on our monitor here. There we go. Look at this. What is this? What is this? That's not white. That's blue.
You might want to fix that camera.
They have not fixed this the entire year. There's 2 months left in the regular season, and they can't figure out their whiteness correction.
I can't wait for the day they figure it out.
I can't wait.
It's going to become a huge meme, too.
Yeah, I mean, it already is a meme in the hockey communities that I follow. That it's like Arizona doesn't know how to run a broadcast, but
I mean, they don't know how to run a team, so
they don't know how to run anything.
They're about to plan a college stadium. So.
That is true. I mean, it is a weird time in sports in general. I know we say this every week, or at least I say this every week, but there truly is no better time but the present, it feels like. March Madness is around the corner. The NHL and NBA playoff races are heating up. The NFL franchise tagging, free agency madness is already
we also
underway.
Forgot to mention Chris Godwin also got franchise tagged.
Yeah, that also happened. That is indeed a thing that happened. I mean, that's kind of a expected move, though.
Yeah.
You would think they'd keep him.
Yeah, you need a second threat in the on outside receivers, because you're doing what you can to keep that team together, but it's really a case of who's going to replace Brady.
Yeah, and before we go, one last time going through some of these games, Wagner and Bryant. Bryant up 47-25.
Just clapping them.
Just destroying Wagner here in the Northeast Conference semifinal. And as we look at the horizon as well, Northern Kentucky, Wright State, battle going on here. The Norse, Northern Kentucky up 57-50 over Wright State. And then any other games to get to?
Yeah, I would say the one to put on, I think it's the championship, is the Colonial. You got UNC Wilmington up 41-40 over Delaware right now on CBS Network. So go put that game on. That should be a fun finish down the stretch. Delaware's the 5 seed, UNC's the 2 seed in that conference. So we'll see if Delaware is able to still bid there at the 5 spot.
And then, of course, the 2 championship games tonight we talked about earlier this week, or earlier this show, which is technically earlier this week.
Hey, you're not wrong.
St. Mary's Gonzaga at 8 o'clock ESPN, and North Dakota State, South Dakota State, 8 o'clock ESPN2. Those will be some fantastic games to watch. So as we get ready to wrap everything up here, any closing thoughts on what has been already a wild week of sports?
It's only going to get better here down the stretch. As all the conference playoffs are going to get to their championship Saturdays and Sunday there, and then obviously Selection Sunday.
It's like with March Madness approaching, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Especially we're going to get some juicy upsets. I already feel it, because it ain't March Madness if you don't got upset.
It's not March Madness until you have your first random game of the year.
Hey, we already got it with some of these.
I still think the best one was just when I just got to watch Old Roberts just take down Ohio State and then go to the Sweet 16.
That was a funny one.
That was great. I was like, we're just like, I'm pulling for you, Old Roberts.
Yeah, that's one of those. It's like, all right, I don't like you in baseball, but I trust you in basketball now for some reason.
Exactly. It's like for baseball, it's
like all right,
I hate playing you guys. It's like, go basketball team.
Go basketball. Go do the thing. Let's go. But it will be a fun time for sure. And when we're back next week, we'll come in here next Monday, except we won't. We'll be told to leave. It's spring break. Go home.
I'll be here.
I was like, Andrew, we'll all be here. We just won't be in this room more than likely. I don't know what our plans are for Selection Sunday and all that. That will be more to come as things go on. We will release updates on that if we do something. If we don't announce anything, take it as we're doing nothing is the best way to put it.
Well, I will say we could probably end up get a bracketology thing going.
I mean, we'll definitely do a bracketology show. Even if we don't do Selection Sunday, we would still do that. We'd find a way. We would will our way up here to do something.
Definitely, like Selection Sunday definitely can't. I can't.
Yeah, I know you can't. You've got other accommodations, a.k.a. working.
Yes.
Over here trying to earn money.
Trying to make
what a
some
scrub.
I'll be working as well. So.
What a scrub's trying to get a paycheck.
I'll be working in the morning.
Embrace
we'll see what time I get done.
Do nothing.
I think the main issue is probably just trying to get the door open here.
Yeah, I mean, that will be the main issue. The biggest rivalry on campus, as we all know, is the three of us versus the door to this studio.
I think we probably convince Santunes to get
we could probably get someone to open it for us. But with all that being said, for Andrew Santangelo, for Connor Gray, I am Cade Kennedy. Have a wonderful week, everybody.